welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Mitch Kennedy, Original D-Rose, Rod, The Name's Burley, Twad Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, John Travolta, JMails24, Unimento, M, Iron26, Endless, Flat Earth Sage, Goldie McKiernan, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Bogey, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B. Styles, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Nealands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
So they've taken it and used it for whatever they want to use it for, and they hijacked
for
it.
everybody doesn't know that after the flood, right, Noah's flood, God said, "I will put my bow in the sky after the rain" or something, and that's a remembrance that I will never flood the earth again, as He's done. So that's what the rainbow is supposed to mean.
Right, comforting.
Hey, 10th.
Good morning. Good
Morning,
morning.
10th man, what do you think about how they hijacked the rainbow?
The rainbow, the hijack of the rainbow. How much do they want to give it back?
20 million in unmarked bills.
Hey, we live in a world today where a biological male could say anything he wants to say. He could be a she, he could be a they. It's a crazy world, Neil.
Did you hear Nathan's story at the beginning?
No, I just joined.
No, maybe he'll reiterate it or rephrase it or re-say it. Anyway,
I'm looking
It's probably better left somewhere over the rainbow.
I'm looking for this video that we covered last time because I want to continue covering it.
You want me to put it up?
If you've got it to hand, because I'm scrolling and I can't seem to find it.
I'll go on mute and come back.
Nathan, you're expected to ask what the child's pronouns are. That's what some parents are expecting someone to do.
Oh my God,
that's so ridiculous it is, you know. So I wouldn't even get, as soon as I see anything like that, I wouldn't even get involved. It's just like, I don't care what gender you're trying to claim your child is. Do you know what I mean? I'm not interested in you. You know what I mean? And what nonsense you come on with.
Brian, they're saying now that the doctors cannot declare what the baby is at birth.
I know, Neil, it's total nonsense. The whole thing is imploding upon itself, as was shown with the whole Bud Light scandal. And now you have a lot of female athletes coming out, giving out about the fact that the best they can hope for in a lot of the sports they're in, whether it be swimming, athletics, whatever, is a silver or a bronze. They'll never get to a gold if there's a man who's identifying as female in their race or whatever. Because men are naturally bigger and stronger, so they're going to be able to run faster, swim harder, all this. You know, it's totally, you know, so women's sports are just being destroyed. You know what I mean? It's destroying stuff for women. It's terrible.
It's making it unfair. It's making it unfair.
It's worse than that. Let me tell you. They're trying to blur the lines, right, on purpose. It's obvious mental illness, but it's worse than that because it's a predisposition to destroy society. There's so many stories, like the gal who just became Supreme Court justice. When asked, What's the definition of a woman? Now, she's a woman, and she couldn't answer it. Now, why would you want someone on the Supreme Court who couldn't answer a basic question like that? But it's not because she couldn't, it's because she wouldn't.
Right. Let me ask you a question, Ken. Okay. Born that way because let me tell you something. My mother, she had her first son, which is my older brother, Anthony. He said, me. And as I started crawling and walking around as a toddler, she saw the difference between him and me. How I walked around more like rugged, like a boy, and how he walked around like effeminate. And he turned out, and he still lives that lifestyle. So are you born that way?
No. No, there's complications at birth. We're Siamese twins and all kinds of other complications. There are things that are not the norm. Maybe there was something else going on, but it's a decision you make. I've read on this even in today's culture. I think Norway did a 40-year study on this and said it's a mental issue and that most of them have a higher suicide rate after they identify as the opposite sex. So it's definitely a mental issue. There's 40 plus years of study on it. The off case that someone's got some hormones that are different than others, and which we live in a world where they could put in some hormones that you're missing. That's how much they've studied DNA and know things, and so it borders on these very few issues, and they say that's the norm, when in reality it's a mental issue.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think someone comes along and says the reason why you're this way is because, and starts telling them what they are, which they really aren't.
It's a handy, convenient excuse for degenerate behavior and chaos to say I was born a kleptomaniac. I was born a dictator. I was born, a bank robber.
Well, what you're talking about, Tent, is gender dysphoria.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry,
that's right, Brian. You're right, Brian.
So then why do they differentiate? Why is that different? You can say, all right, you make a decision to be a kleptomaniac, but they're saying they never make a decision to be that way. And this is what I deal with my older brother. And I tell him, no, I don't think so. Because how can you tell me that you're not attracted to women if you never had a woman?
Neil, this is ridiculous. I have a family member who's in this situation. Blatantly told me it's a mental issue. Blatantly told me. And when they groom them nowadays from school with the confusion, and you see stuff on Disney and everything else, the kids don't have a hard stop anywhere. Well, it could be this, it could be that, it could be this, and then in school, look at what they're doing without parents' permissions these days. So they're definitely after our children. This is grooming in such a bad way.
But we shouldn't mix up gay and lesbian with this nonsense. They've hijacked the gay and lesbian struggles that went on, let's just say, from decades ago. They've hijacked that, and they're jumping on that bandwagon. And all that, let's just say, did you imagine being gay in the early 80s in London? You would have been feeling like such an outcast, in somewhere like London, and that's a big city. Never mind it's somewhere small and rural. It would have been a nightmare. So after many decades of people fighting to be accepted, like, look, I'm just gay or I'm just lesbian or whatever, and that's the way I am.
Well,
that
you're right,
has been hijacked. That has been hijacked, Ted.
No, you're right.
You're right.
No, you're right, because even that group is against them using, jumping on the bandwagon that they, that they have. They're even speaking against it.
Yeah, I have two first cousins, a male and a female, and they're both gay. Now, they both didn't start. I think that my female cousin did kind of go that direction early on, but the male cousin, her brother, he got married in that, and he had a couple of kids, I think, even. I'm not even sure if he had. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I haven't seen him for a long time. But he eventually got divorced, and he had to admit to his partner, "I'm gay," and he just admitted to himself he was gay. He just was, and I wasn't really surprised to hear it. He was that kind of a person. But he's not feminine, going around feminine all the time. But I wasn't surprised to hear he was gay. But him and her are completely different people from these maniacs you see online who are trying to push crazy nonsense. I mean, for them to come out and say they were gay back in the 80s would have been a nightmare in Ireland. And after all that work that went on for these people to be accepted and for what they are, it's just been destroyed. All the decades of effort has just been destroyed, and they're hijacking the rainbow. It's just like, it's crazy, what's going on.
That's a whole different topic. The rainbow is symbolic of the flood and the biblical version of it. So that kept to that is fine. Anyone could use the rainbow for any symbol they want. As they say, it's a free country. At the end, we're all going to have to face the Creator. So do everything carefully.
Right, but you can't deny that they're mocking God with that. That's why they pick that and choose that. But let me ask you a question.
Hang on, Neil. Maybe some are and some aren't, but that's not the point. That's a separate issue. To me, they use, in this world on other subjects, let's just jump to another subject. They use identification markers, that we'd say, well, why are you using that identification? I mean, it's at the end, each person is, their own conscience is bearing witness to what they're doing in their life. Everyone's going to face the Creator one day. Just whatever you do carefully. My goodness.
Tread lightly, right?
Well, I mean, if I know I'm going to die and I'm going to meet the Creator, how am I going to live? Just go throughout life that way, and say, okay, maybe I should seek the Creator, like the Scripture says. I want to know you, and maybe that should be the clarion cry of my life before I buy a Lamborghini or buy the big house. Maybe I should just say, if you're there and you're knowable, make yourself knowable to me. That was my prayer when I was a kid.
I have to disagree with Brian on one thing. You're saying that your cousins were gay. I have to disagree, because when you're in that lifestyle, you can't tell me that you have one happy day in your life. They hijacked the word gay too.
What's the timestamp? What did we get up to? Can you remember?
It was the third one. So just scroll until you see the different person sitting across from her. So we did all the way to the third person, right? And we got 2 left.
Okay. So we're at the end of Chinese Thelma, and we're going to go on to Dude in the Jeans. Okay.
This has been a real good series to see how the institutions and the teachers know something, but don't deliver it until the end and tell you everything else before that you have to unlearn later.
The great ball bust this Saturday, by the way.
Sorry, Neil. Sorry.
No, I was just saying it was a great ball bust this Saturday. I really enjoyed you and AI going back and forth with the logic.
Yeah, well, I mean, pretty straightforward. It's like without correct formation of thought, you're not going to come to a logical conclusion. I mean, the scientific method, without correct formation of thought, that method wouldn't be what it is. You needed correct formation of thought to get to that, to create that method.
So the incorrect would be pseudoscience, right?
Yeah, it would. Obviously, exactly. Incorrect formation of thought will lead you to pseudoscience and nonsense.
What would pouring water in the gasoline engine tank do? Would that be correct formation of thought or incorrect?
I wouldn't do it. Yeah, but it's just I mean, like, everyone was trying to get philosophical about it. To me, there's nothing philosophical about it. It's just very straightforward. Correct formation of thought. Your thought formation is either correct or incorrect. Correct will lead you to logic. Incorrect will lead you to illogic. Pseudoscience, nonsense.
And see, that's my thing. They were saying that you're not defining it. I think that is defining it the way you said it.
Yeah, you're not the only person to say that to me since then. Yeah, It is what it is. I think it was so simple, people weren't accepting it. You know what I mean? It's like, it is what it is.
Well, when you're learning,
Sorry.
no. I was going to say, when you're learning a second language or a third, you have your language. Say English is your main language. Move to another country. Well, unless you find someone speaking English, you're lost until you learn that other language. Once you learn that other language, you're not lost. You can now be an interpreter between English and that other language. And then you decide, I want to learn a third language. Well, all this is correct information and understanding the meanings of words. You can't have liberalism or this word can mean 20 zillion things and ever get anywhere.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, English is one of those languages that it's easier to do that with it than other languages, from what I could gather. Because if you look at Latin, Japanese, let's just say French, there's a logic behind how they do things, how they word things, you know what I mean? So if someone was saying something to you in Latin, in Italian, the way they would say, or Spanish, the way they would say it to you would refer, if they were referring to something, would be different logically than how it's referred to in English. I think the way it is, yeah, come on.
No, I'm Armenian.
You know what I mean,
No, I'm Armenian. My first language is Armenian, and my second language was Persian. Moved to America, I had to learn English in the place where everyone spoke Spanish. It's like, wait a minute, I'm totally confused here. So when they said, like the word ball, in English, it could be a dance. It could be a variety of different balls. It could be something you hang on a tree at Christmas time. So it's like, it's not definitive enough, the English. It could be, that's why it's easy to pun in English.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by 10th Man Rising, the Adam Meakin, Brian, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning. Well, that was quick.
I've got the habit down of waiting for the crazy chaos to end at the intro point of the show. Now, if you haven't tuned in last week on Flat Earth Debate, we've been covering a video which we've put more attention into than I'm going to say any other video we've responded to thus far. Because this Wired video with what I've dubbed the Wired Witch, this lady here, shows in depth how you are programmed throughout your education into a belief in the heliocentric model by way of disseminating how gravity is brainwashed into kids and then into young adults. So that's what we're going to be covering again today. This is, I believe, part 3. I think this is the third one we've covered on this. Normally we only do 2. This is the third, I believe. And we have covered them in other after shows as well, so it is a bit more extensive than it even sounds, being a part 3. But we will get into that. We'll pray out a couple of seconds of Chinese Thelma, as Adam did the last time, and then we'll move on to the next one, which we are, or at least I am, blind on what we'll be covering next. So we'll see how the outrage level goes. I'll keep you updated. In the meantime, is there any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No, there's none. There's not even any evidence for axial rotation to go along with that.
Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container for the gas to press upon?
That would be, according to the heliocentric model, gas taking the shape of no container.
Gases have no inherent
right?
shape. They're predominantly spaces between molecules bouncing off each other or the walls of a container. So they don't have any inherent shape. They take the shape of their containment. Gases, that is.
Not according to heliocentrism. According to heliocentrism, they take the shape of no container.
Yeah, I tried what Brian said. I went to a propane refilling station, and they said, "Where's your container?" And I go, "I'm a heliocentric. I don't need a container."
In case you're not picking up what they're putting down in the G+ panel, they're suggesting that the begging the question assertion of atmosphere, that's atmo, air, like we're all breathing, that's gases, a mixture thereof. Sphere, a presupposition of a shape without containment. So an arbitrarily sphere-shaped air is what we are in the heliocentric world, assuming our gases are. That's atmosphere, sphere-shaped air. Hello, Arwin. Hello, Paul.
But yeah,
Hello,
there's
Nathan.
no
Hello.
evidence
Hello.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Okay,
I
so
sound good.
yeah, we're doing good. We've got rid of a couple of housekeeping questions just to keep the general theme of housekeeping alive, even though we don't cover all of them every day anymore. But we're going to get into a bit of the Wired Witch like we did last week.
It really helps build my intuition.
Yeah, it does for me too. So thank you. So you're getting your PhD in physics.
That's right, theoretical high-energy physics. Basically the physics of really, really small fundamental things.
So what would that have to do with gravity or astrophysics?
Well, what I'm looking at is states of matter that might exist inside neutrons.
That might exist. If this is physics, why are we discussing things that might exist? In neutron stars, what, out in the sky vacuum? So very much not dealing with reality, this dude then. Astrophysicist.
But
Aspiring. Go ahead, Darwin.
yeah, sorry. But I mean, you have to wonder, like, what is like inside of these atoms and beyond, right? It's not just astrophysics, it's also the internal world. Like, they have to give you an answer like they know everything, right? Even if they are permanently unable to ever attain that information, they still feel like they have to speculate about knowing it and then giving you a model, even if they can't prove it.
If I come up with a theoretical model for the unicorn constellation in the heliocentric model, and then I suppose what the digestive tract of said unicorn constellation is, bearing in mind that the unicorn constellation, because it's mostly formed of gaps between lights in the sky, I'm going to say that it's a contained system, therefore unicorn, therefore has a digestive system, and I'm going to speculate about what the digestive tract contains in terms of life forms in the unicorn constellation, because I need to have an answer for it. It doesn't matter that the entirety of the premise of the unicorn constellation and the heliocentric model it's based on is bunk. I've still got to have an explanation for how the digestive tract of my unicorn works, do I? No.
Yes.
Yeah. No, yes, you say. I say no. By example,
Well, some
you say
people
yes.
just
Go on, 10th.
some people just can't stomach this analogy that you're giving at this moment.
Neutron stars. So when a star dies, if the star is massive enough, there's a huge explosion called a
Massive enough. Massive would require the R value for your presupposition that Earth is a sphere, and Christian Huygens' assumption that Venus is the same spherical value as the assumed R value of Earth. So you can superimpose that assumption onto the light to then derive the scaling values through Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion to give you the distances and sizes of these lights. Now, the sizes also comes from an objection originally from Brahe, saying the scale of them would have to be enormous. Well, now they are enormous in the heliocentric model because the size wasn't relevant to tracking their timings for Easter in terms of when they'd appear. Now, further to that, the timings for the distances are based on the R value that A, can no longer be measured because we debunked it back in 2020 with the Black Swan, and B, is assumed to be the same as Venus in orbital motion in the heliocentric system. Actually just a light in the sky. That's assumed to have a spherical value as Earth when spherical. Yeah, none of these distances and size that this guy's going to babble on about when he talks about theoretical things in lights in the sky has any meaning whatsoever You're being trained in nonsense. What a waste of money.
Yeah,
Can I give a rendition of, just I'll be quick then, of
Brian.
how they came up with the distance to the sun?
You can,
They
but not
started off-
after I do a couple of things. So hold that thought for 10 seconds while I tell people who are in the chat. Not that I'm suggesting you go away and do this while Brian's talking rather than me. Go away and do it now. Do it now. Share the show. And obviously go and let this wired woman, or wired as the videographer, YouTube channel, whatever you want to call him, know that Nathan Oakley 1980 channel sent me. Maybe leave a nice comment, but you can probably see now if I bring it up on screen so you can actually see this is the case. I would hope that she'd return the favour, or they, he, she, whatever they go by. Zara returns the favour by sharing my link if they do a response. Not that it's happened so far, but, you know, with enough time and enough iteration, or whatever the word is, that is the purpose of me sharing their show. You help them algorithmically. Hopefully they'll do the same for me in return, should they respond. But let them know Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. And, while Brian's hopefully still hanging on to that thought, share the show. So there's 50-odd people watching. It'd be great to get to 100 really quickly, and then I can encourage more people to share the show. So go ahead, Brian. Hopefully I haven't cut you off too much.
No. It's just there because it's connected to all their claims about the stars and the size of them and all the rest of it. It all starts with the sun. They took an average angular size of the sun, which is 0.5 degrees, and they claimed, just pulled it out of a hat, that Venus is the same size basically as the globe Earth, which means it has a radius close to 3959 miles. Now, this is all without any radius measurement or any measurement of anything of a globe. So it starts off with that globe pre-assumption. And then they determined via Venus's angular size when it's transiting the sun, how far away from the sun it was, to determine how far away their globe was from Venus, to determine how far away the globe was from the sun. See, that's how easy it is. They just start with the angular size of the sun, claim that the Earth is a globe, claim that Venus is the same size as that globe Earth, and compare the two angular sizes of the sun and Venus when Venus is transiting it through its claimed heliocentric orbit of the sun, and determine the distances from that. That's what they do, and it's the same. That's the starting point for everything to do with the stars, because the sun is a star in their model. So it all starts there and ends there. It starts and ends at the horizon. That's the truth, as we all know.
Supernova.
But as far as these distances, that's what they do.
And the stuff that's left behind that doesn't get blown away collapses into a tiny compact blob called a neutron star.
So,
Show us. Say again.
Sorry, but just to go back to the last point, you mentioned Brahe. A good sign of any genuine heliocentric underpinning statement is that the original discovering founding father absolutely abhors the underlying principles. So Newton, gravity, Brahe, and the ridiculous sizes that stars must be if they're that far away and are made up of the same stuff and constitute the same thing as the sun. Very important as you move forward in heliocentrism that you take a guy that makes a statement of logic and sense, that it's not likely that stars are suns millions of miles further away, because they'd have to be millions of times bigger. You take that statement, you build on it with hard quality bullshit. So instead of it being a point of objection, it becomes an underlying principle to your model.
Okay, let me just rephrase that to dumb it down. So Tycho Brahe looks at the logic based on this scale and says, this won't come across if it's in text, but in voice I can do it. Brahe says, well, they'd have to be absolutely enormous. Someone comes along and goes, now if I just rephrase that, change the tone a little, they would have to be enormous. Full stop. Right? See how just the tone of that exact same statement makes a real difference. In one, from Brahe, it's an objection. In the other, it's a statement of fact.
Exactly, because Brahe was a geocentrist. So there was no massive universe. Earth, even if he saw it as a globe or thought of it as a globe, was the center of whatever universe was there. But when they changed it to it being heliocentric as opposed to geocentric, then they could expand this universe out into this monstrous, never-ending vacuum that they have.
What I love about neutron stars personally is
Right, what you love about these lights in the sky that you've had no physical experience with whatsoever, and this guy is going to be going through his education system speculating about this light's potential physical properties in a heliocentric model that's been debunked. What you love about those, personally, is that what we're going to get into now, is it, love? Okay, let's see how this goes down.
is that they're kind of city-sized, right?
That's right.
They're about the size of a city.
She's got no idea how big a neutron star is or what a neutron star is. She's got a description of lights in the sky and a claim about what will happen to them in their life cycle as heliocentric gases in a sky vacuum, in an orbital motion, based on all of the above characters that we just went through and laughed about. So she hasn't got the slightest idea what this quote-unquote neutron star is. What we've got is a twinkling light. Literally, that is what we are describing. Quick shout out to Godzilla37, who is like the most prolific, if that's the correct pronunciation, super chatter there is on Flat Earth Debate. Much love to you, super chatter Godzilla37, for the super chat. He says, rather listen to FAD than drive to my first call. Good thing it's west of here. I'll just face my vehicle west, put it in neutral, listen to FED, and wait till it gets there. Also, hi. I assume that's a Coriolis reference. Nah, your wheels are attached to the non-inertial claim to be turning reference frame of a globe Earth. So it's only upon separation, i.e. if you're a flight travelling west, like Charlotte, North Carolina to Los Angeles, that you'd have this effect that you're describing. Whereas if you're a ball attached to a roundabout, rolled as the roundabout turns, you're not detailing Coriolis effect, which is the globe Earth claim. But thank you all the same for the super chat, Godzilla37. Really appreciate the support.
Well, it wouldn't even happen because he drives a Jeep. He needs a Toyota Coriolis for that to happen.
A Toyota Coriolis? The car in front is a Coriolis.
So you're imagining something more than the mass of the sun.
Imagining, right? Why has he got physicist in the name that he's training towards? Astrophysicist. Surely that has something to do with the physical.
Yep, or about the mass of the sun condensed to the size of a city.
Is that really the case? As evidenced by what?
It's enough that 1 teaspoonful would weigh about 1 billion tons. Here.
Really? And if I challenge that with total speculation and complete made-up nonsense, that actually it weighs less, in spite of it being about the size of a city, it weighs less than a grain of sand. I mean, I just pull it out my ass, like you have. But who's to challenge it? I mean, my standard of saying it weighs less than a grain of sand, when I don't even know what the hell it is, it's just a twinkling light in the sky. Yeah, it holds absolutely no meaning whatsoever. None, in physical terms.
On Earth.
Now, that makes the gravitational field incredibly strong.
Gravitational field? Didn't we have a little video clip that Quantum Eraser dropped into Master B last time we did this? This is going to be another one of those times that I scroll and can't talk enough to fill the gap to make it seem like it's got good timing. Oh, come on. Where did he drop it? Maybe he dropped it somewhere else. Maybe he dropped it in...
It was on Friday he did it. He dropped it Friday in Master B.
Was it in Master B?
Yeah, pretty sure it was Master B, yeah.
I want to get it in.
That spoon that weighs how many pounds? It's amazing makeup stuff, man.
Morning, guys. According to the general theory of relativity, gravity is not a force. There are no gravitational fields.
Oh, what was it you were saying, Love, about gravitational fields?
That's
right, around the neutron star. So what would happen if we were on a neutron star because of the gravity? That makes the gravitational field incredibly strong.
Gravity is kind of an illusion.
Yeah? An illusion? Not a field? Yeah, exactly.
That's
right, around the neutron star. So what?
Against each other. So it sounds like they need to have a debate against each other to figure out whether gravitational fields actually exist or not.
Well, they kind of, if you compare this to the previous interviews or not interviews, but the other students, she's coming in and helping him, and he's missing things that she's filling in, telling you that she knew all this stuff. Of course, it's all made up beforehand when she had the younger students, and said the opposite. Just listen to how they have this little dance. They have a cadence going. They just have to say one word. The other person already has 1,000 chapters of that book in their head.
Right, please share the show. 75 people watching. Smash that share button. Let's get it to 100. Go on, Brian.
What she's doing is shopping and changing between what she would call Newtonian and Einsteinian relativity, because she's talking about things within the heliocentric model that requires general relativity. But then she's talking about the mass, whatever the hell that is, of the star, right, creating a tremendous gravitational field, because mass equals, you know what I mean, gravitation, right? A force of gravity. So she's chopping and changing between out of date, 108 years out of date, a force of gravity, and Einsteinian relativity, which they need for these crazy claims. That's why Einstein's relativity was accepted, and what they would call Newtonian force of attraction, gravity, was thrown out the window, because it didn't work for what they needed to do. They couldn't keep expanding their universe with it. So she's talking about something that requires relativity and trying to add in something that had to get thrown out the window for relativity to even come in.
Right, they're in totally different geometries, but she's got to convolute them, and this is at the tail end of her convolution, though. At the end of this process, she'll be on pure Einsteinian, I'm in no doubt. Retro Bill from the Super Chat says, loving this trilogy in terms of the Wired Witch. Yeah, definitely. It's something that I'm hoping to get through. That's why maybe I should just come clean. And the reason I want you to share the show is because I'd like to stay live a little bit longer and get this, bash to start the park, because we're only about halfway through. Well, a bit further on, but hopefully we'll get it through. And if there's more people watching, I'm more inclined to stay on track doing it. So hopefully you'll all share the show and we'll get well onto 100, 120 people watching.
What would happen if we were on a neutron star?
Oh, right. What? Something that's intensely gravitationally intense, right? And intensely dense, and all of the things notwithstanding about your gravitational paradigm that you brainwashed this guy and all the previous kids with. I mean, this is the reason I've got to preface that is because essentially this will be the death cell again, won't it?
We would immediately be crushed into the ground.
So dead. Yeah. So like I've said on the last 3 examples, she uses the death cell repeatedly. I say she's just utilizing the tricks and tools of the trade when it comes to heliocentrism. So I won't say it's particularly her. Heliocentrism utilizes the death cell. In this example, it immediately starts with him being dead, doesn't it? It's just described, hypothetically, him being stood somewhere that would kill him. I'm sure he's going to smile while he says it. Fear.
I think our bodies would be shredded into their subatomic.
Shredded into subatomic. Yeah, while he's smiling. Yeah, grimace.
Particles.
Nathan, what's so funny here is that gravity's now the force, but over there it's going to shred you.
But isn't it funny though that I like how you call it the death cell, right? The death cell requires everything that they want. That like they love this place that they call outer space, right? They love it, but everything in this place that doesn't actually exist will kill them. It's the most ridiculous environment known to man, but they just want to be out there hanging out. That's insanity.
What's the connection between neutron stars and black holes?
So as I understand it, a black hole is sort of like a neutron star's big brother. It's more intense. If you have so much matter when a star is collapsing that it can't hold itself up, it collapses to a black hole. And those are so dense that space-time breaks down.
Wait, what breaks down? A 4th dimension described by Einstein as pseudo. That breaks down. A pseudo dimension breaks down. All right, not to worry. That's not going to affect us in any physical way. Pseudo dimensions don't affect me. Pseudo geometry, pseudo Einsteinian geometry, pseudo Riemannian force-space geometry invented by Einstein, space-time breaking down. Go on.
So Nathan, he's saying a concept is breaking down.
Yes.
The illusion of gravity is breaking down. That's what he's actually saying.
No. The reified force of gravity within a neutron star and the amount of pressure and density. What a coincidence. That's created. More intense than the teaspoon of immense weight that he described when he said that the neutron star, comparatively to other stars that have gone through their death rows and have now concluded that process with this super dense neutron star, right? Light in the sky. Yeah. By comparison, gravity's like that on acid. It's like that times 20. So it's much, much, much more dense to the point where the concept of pseudo-Riemannian force space-time invented by Einstein starts collapsing. But that's still an effect that he's going to be describing within the mathematics, if he's going to be describing it accurately, of a fourth dimension. Described as though it's in a physical reality. So he's going to be describing that as opposed to the reality of the pseudo-dimension collapsing. That isn't what he's describing. Just to be clear.
So he's saying there's going to be a mathematical disaster, basically, is what he's saying.
In the fourth dimension, yes.
Yeah, when a description being space and a concept being time, like collapse, you know.
A mathematical disaster is that when your piece of paper starts exploding and shit.
Yeah. You put a 2 in instead of a 4 and it all goes wrong.
Let's find out.
In some way or another.
Black holes are so amazing that where the neutron star stops and there's something actually there, right? There's a material there. If it's so heavy it becomes a black hole, so it keeps falling.
Sorry, wasn't a neutron star in her description just super dense material anyway?
Once the event horizon of the black hole forms, which is the shadow, the curve that's so strong that not even light can escape, the material keeps falling. And like you said, maybe space-time breaks down right at the center.
Escape? Like what? Like light's got a journey? See, that's wrong. See, all of this has been debunked by quantum mechanics, hasn't it? You know, all these descriptions of how light can't escape from the event horizon. Yeah, that's all nonsense. It's all debunked.
There, but whatever happens,
she's breathing. You want to go, Brian, or
no, thank you.
Okay, no, she's breathing life into something that no one's experienced. It's not even empirical, by the obvious reason. No one's been there. She's saying, "Isn't that amazing when this happened?" Amazing what? What did you experience? It's all calculations and mathematical disasters you're explaining here. They already got us in the begging the question out there in their heliocentric model, and everyone's saying, "Wow, look at, she just mentioned that. I didn't know that. Oh, black hole and this, and a spoon that weighs this much." So people who don't have critical thinking are already there. So now they can say anything they want because it actually exists.
Yeah, well, I mean, she can't talk about something having a load of mass and it having a really intense gravitational field and then speak about a two-way speed of light calculation, as they're two different things. One is limited to the two-way speed of light calculation, which is 671,870,000 or something miles an hour, and the other is instantaneous action at a distance. So it's so convoluted.
Yeah, but the biggest problem we got here is before you talk about two-way speed of light, black holes, all this stuff, can you just show us R here on terra firma? Just show us a physical geometric horizon where it's supposed to be. Can you just do that first?
The star's gone. That black hole is empty. So in a weird way, black holes are a place and not a thing.
So is there a sensible way to talk about what's inside a black hole, or is that, should you think of it as there is no space-time inside?
There isn't a sensible way to talk about it yet, and that probably...
So why are we describing how sensible we will be when detailing something? It's just ridiculous language that's being used. And his question is about, fairly plainly, whether or not space-time exists at the point of collapse of a black hole. That was his question. Now, what I would answer him with is no, because what you're describing is a bent geodesic for a light particle to be trapped by at the edge of an event horizon where the fourth dimension bends, because that's the point where you've got this super dense material turning into a black hole, warping the invented pseudo fourth dimension by Einstein. So when we talk about gravity wells and all of these things, we're talking about bent geodesics in space-time. Now, we might on the next level get to the point where we're talking about various parts of the fourth dimension bending back on themselves and black holes linking between to give us wormholes. All sorts of crazy nonsense notions that have come from a brief history and time further down the line. I mean, I don't know if we'll go beyond Einstein, but these are the kind of places that these bent geodesics in a fourth dimension lead to, and leave you with a guy like this asking questions about places that aren't real, and her questioning the validity of how sensible it is to discuss them, not how physically real they are.
But Nathan, is it sensible to talk about the type of shoes the kids were wearing where they went through the wardrobe to get to Narnia? Let's talk about the type of shoes they were wearing. Isn't that sensible?
Oh, it's not sensible to talk about the time dilation processes that go on when you traverse through wardrobe to Narnia. I mean, it's not even sensible to contemplate those things. I mean, notwithstanding the fact that we are both under the definite realisation and understanding that we can traverse wardrobes to get to Narnia. Right, Chocolate?
But of course.
Of course. Oh, so long as we're all understanding that. I mean, it's not. We can discuss the whys and wherefores of how sensible it is to discuss the time dilation that you experience when traversing wardrobes. I mean, that sort of thing isn't even for us to really discuss. I mean, not to mention how complicated the maths is. But next time we're in Narnia, we can ponder these things together, Chocolate.
Yes,
we're going
we
to
shall.
need. Sorry, Chocolate. We're going to need fifth dimension pseudo Albanian maths for that.
The pseudo-Albanian maths
Yeah,
is something that was developed by Friedrich, at least 116 years ago. I mean, that's very well-established mathematics.
And just so people know, I know that fourth dimension is not Romanian maths. I know that. It's Romanian, not Romanian.
That's just my Brummie accent. That's got nothing to do with its actual validity as a We're talking about the name of a geometry. Romanian, I don't care how it's said. Yeah, I've probably got adenoids. It doesn't matter. We're just labelling a geometry, right? Fourth dimensional geometry, pseudo-Romanian, however the hell it's pronounced. But it's not Euclidean 3-space, is it? Right, what you'd need for mass attracting mass? You can't even calculate for that in fourth dimensional space-time anyway. Right, it's just absurd.
Romanian, just let us alone.
Romanian, I think it is. I say Romanian. It's Romanian.
Means that's where Einstein's theory of gravity as a curved spacetime is beginning.
Not a theory, not a scientific theory, has no scientific validation, has no empiricism, has no cause and effect reasoning. It's an invented pseudo-geometry.
Beginning to break down.
Break down? What, so we're going to go on to how Einstein's mathematics and field equations don't work? I doubt it.
And we need to take the extra step of going to some kind of quantum theory of gravity.
Oh, quantum? Shouldn't you explain what quantum mechanics is before going to a quantum theory of gravity? Because in reality, quantum mechanics debunked all this crap from Einstein. We just pointed it out 25 seconds ago.
Just on the quantum theory bit, this is stolen valor again, isn't it?
Yep.
I think a few weeks ago, we're looking at this and we're trying, quantum gravity, lovely, what is that? And we go and we research it and you get the admission, it's a pathetic attempt to fudge things together that can't be fudged together. And at best, it's not an agreed on even what quantum gravity would be within the community, because fundamentally, we're using the word quantum and the empiricism and scientific information it provides when we think about quantum mechanics, and they're taking the quantum from there and the gravity from the other waffle, and they're trying to put the two together as if it means something. And that's the point I want to make. What she's just said there, if she was honest, would be saying, well, after saying quantum gravity, and fundamentally, that means nothing. It means one thing to one physicist, one thing to another. And if I'm being super honest, that gravity and quantum mechanics are not able to be fused together to give some overreaching theory. It's a lie, and it's an attempt to rescue both Newtonian and Einsteinian gravity models.
Correct.
That's quantum field theory you're talking about, Adam, isn't it?
Well, yeah,
where they have
yeah.
Newtonian, Einsteinian, and quantum mechanics all mixed into the one. Three things that definitely cannot mix. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas quantum gravity is gravitons. that are whatever that is, massless particles that move through the universe instantaneously. So you can't detect them, you can't see them, but they're there and they go around everywhere really, really fast.
Okay, just so we can summarize where we've got from and where we are at now. We've gone from gravity being a force that holds you to the ground, that you can measure how strong it is, to gravity not being a force of down holding you to the ground, but a force of you falling in an elevator and not realizing that you're falling, to gravity being light, not being able to escape from the edge of something called an event horizon, at a point where pseudo-Riemannian force-space-time dimensions have bent because of the huge mass of something bigger than or more mass than a neutron star. So now we can summarize, at least at this point, what the Einsteinian assertion is, because that is, in essence, what she's just declared. So as a cause and effect supposition based on the pseudo-Riemannian force-space dimension that we don't live in, you have the supposition that the uneven distribution of mass will cause the bending of space-time. Now, the bending of space-time would be the fourth dimension bending when he said, at the point of this mass going in beyond the event horizon, is there any space-time at all? Well, no, because the space-time is the thing being dimensionally bent and warped in order to describe this effect. The effect, in quotes, being gravity. So we've gone from gravity being a force in a three-dimensional worldview of something falsely ascribed to a man called Newton after he objected to how stupid and ludicrous it would be to make this assertion. So they named it after him, Newtonian gravity. That's what's being indoctrinated to the children at the beginning of this process. Now we're at the mid-stage, moving on to the actually debunking, but now hodgepodge slapped onto the end of the claim that the uneven distribution of mass causes gravity, which is the bending of space-time invented by Einstein. So it seems there is more as they go through what we're going to get to next, quantum foam. We'll see, because we're not at the end yet, that's for sure.
We don't have that yet. So even though the black hole is...
Also, please share the show. 88 people watching. It's pretty good, but not great. So, yeah, if you've just joined us, thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully you've clicked on a link that someone else has shared. Unless you've looked us up because you were happening to find your way through the funeral services, which I'm now listed in, rather than Flat Earth. I mean, obviously, being at the bottom of funeral services listings is just as terrible as being at the bottom of Flat Earth listings. But nevertheless, you may not have come by looking for, a way to bury a loved one, or because you're a particular member of a particular evangelical church, which I'm also at the bottom of the list of them as well. But nevertheless, if you have found your way here because a Flat Earth friend has actually shared the show, then I thank you and welcome. But if you haven't already smashed the share button, please do so. And let this lady know at Wired. Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me with a nice comment that won't get removed.
Isn't completely understood. We do know that they form astronomically, that in the universe, things like neutron stars form and things like black holes form. The consequence...
No, you don't know that. That's a baseless assertion. You don't know that. You have devised these descriptions of the things that you have scaled with Kepler and Huygens, and then you just arbitrarily, after ascribing them with those values, declare them as knowing that you know that's the case. Absolutely not.
Consequences are very much speaking to this curved space-time. So, for instance...
Speaking to a fourth-dimensional pseudo-reality we don't live in. They're all speaking to that, are they? Yeah, we know. It's just nonsense. We don't live in a fourth dimension.
Of two black holes that orbit each other. They're like mallets on a drum, and they actually cause space-time to ring. And it's very much part of gravitation.
What? The fourth dimension now makes sound? Ugh. We're so far off into La La Land at this point in Einstein's nonsense. Obviously they needed a changing of the guard, and it was forced upon them by cause and effect reasoning with quantum that they are now hijacking. But this is where the La La Land of Einstein ends up.
The ringing of space-time itself.
Ringing of a fourth-dimensional space-time that we don't inhabit. My God.
We call gravitational waves.
Oh, really? As they permeate the Earth as a sphere in an orbit that's been scaled by Kepler? Definitely not. We've debunked all of this. You'll need a geometric horizon. You'll need an R value. You'll need something better than a Huygens assumption that Venus has got the same value. And then an application of the Kepler's third law that is definitely not in application. You're only trying to use that to figure out when Easter is, as opposed to taking on board an objection from It wasn't Kepler. We said it earlier. Who was the guy who objected about their size? Brahe. You've got it. Brahe. Taking an objection from Brahe and then giving these massive sizes to then infer that later down the line, when you move on from 3D to 4D, that you've got a space-time being bent by the uneven distribution of mass, and that geodesic carries with it, as a wave, a sound that permeates the Earth as a sphere. This is the biggest string of nonsense ever. We live in a weird world where, when broken down, the religious worldviews of your average Joe Globe believer are pretty extreme. I mean, this is some pretty kooky nonsense. Would you not all agree? 4D space-time with sound waves in it.
It's crazy because she's actually trying to say that that gravitational waves are being created and they have a resonance. But really what she's saying is mathematics with sound. That's what our actual claim is, isn't it, if we think about it?
But the propagation of sound through a three-dimensional box can be defined, measured, shown, reified into graphs, depicted in all sorts of different ways. You know, the science of how sound is measured, I say science, the mathematics of how sound is measured, right, is something that's been pegged for a very, very long time, right? Like a couple of 100 years, people have understood this stuff, been getting to grips with it. But in the last 100 years, it's all understood, right? But it all takes place in a 3D world. So when you talk about adding on an extra dimension that we cannot experience in any way, shape or form, see, measure, none of it, because it's a time dimension. Well, when you talk about qualifying sound, you're talking about, in terms of how you measure it and write it down, the numbers of oscillations over a period. The period is time. So when she talks about time as a fabric and a dimension, then oscillating, it's like, how do you qualify the sound wave when reified into a graph when you've got a period that you've got to justify and the periods become a fabric? It's like, this makes no mathematical sense to me when it's broken down like this. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've heard these principles before, but I've not heard them disseminated in the way that she's just disseminated them in terms of what a gravitational wave is. Now, even in the name, I had a reasonable understanding of what that meant. But I've just never heard it disseminated in the way she has. Now, I'm not denying that that's how I'm not saying true, how they disseminate it, or it's accurate within the heliocentric model. But it's such a nonsensical convention, because you've got something that requires a period in sound, and something that's taken the period, put it into a dimension, and then said that itself oscillates. This is fucking not. Sorry, I have to stop getting. I'm getting annoyed.
Well,
something near and dear to my heart when it comes to sound.
Nathan, Brian's point, this only exists in the math. So they got a mathematical disaster on their hand. So what they do is they do some more equations and say, we solved the problem of the black hole and the neutron because we got the right math now. So everything about it only exists in the math. And that's what Brian's trying to say. It's not reality. It's not empirical. It's all made up.
Well, so far she's claimed maths can be a disaster, can create a disaster, and that maths has a sound. Like, can someone tell me what is the sound of time? You know what I mean?
It's a convoluted question. That's why it frustrates me, because when you say what is the sound of time, it's like, well, no. When you measure the sound of something in a frequency, you're measuring it against time. That's one of the things you'll plot on the graph. So if you've already got it plotted in terms of the time versus a duration, how many waves in that period, how do you then transpose that into a fabric? And the answer is you can't.
It's crazy. I mean, space is a description of 3 dimensions. It's a description. That's all it is. The word space. It's the way it describes. Time is a concept. None of them have sound. None of them.
Yeah.
And this was something Einstein thought about right away in 1915, 1916. He was thinking about that.
Those waves are very exciting for me too, because neutron stars orbiting each other also give off gravitational waves, and we might be able to get some data about neutron star material.
Steve, what?
Say again, Adam.
Data?
So
I didn't know what you said, Adam. Okie dokie then. We'll move on.
From that kind of signal.
Yes, they ring space-time also like a drum, and you can record the sound of that ringing after 1 billion years when it's trapped.
It can record the sound.
Who's got a recorder for 1 billion?
It's a space-time
How are they
recorder.
going to validate that?
Nope, space-time is storing the waves.
So we've got a special methodology of sound that is due to the vibration of a fourth dimension, and we've also got something to record. So we've got a fourth dimensional vibrational recorder, unless of course it just makes a normal sound. But how would a fourth dimension make normal sound and cause air molecules to vibrate? So this is bunkum. It's starting to sound right. It's reminding me that the only way to win this thing is the O.J. Simpson trial method, which is just to go to kind of that special pleading that, did you not know that Chewbacca is a Wookiee? Yeah? You keep talking about that and that and that in such a nonsense way that you forget what the actual original claim is. Because she started this off ringing a bell of space-time. And they're going to do that to understand what a neutron star is. When they've already not proven what a neutron star is, they've already decided that that special type of light in the sky is a neutron star. Like I say, it just all smells of just total special pleading now, to the point.
Adam,
Yeah.
she said it takes 1 billion years to record. That's because the speed of that sound, it takes that much time for it to reach our ears. I'm assuming that's what she means. Because
no, that's not what she means. It isn't.
No, what she mean?
Well, she doesn't, because that's talking about air propagating through the sound, moving the air molecules so it propagates to your ears. Well, that's very much a three-dimensional concept plotted against a duration. Well, you can plot that on a two-dimensional graph with a line and a wave. Okay, fine. Well, how are you going to then describe that as the ringing of the dimension of time? You square that circle for me before you say that that's what she's saying, because she isn't. When you describe how sound actually works.
My point, Nathan, was she's already giving it a name, it's a ringing. But if it takes 1 billion years to actually hear the ringing, how did she know to call it a ringing?
Oh, I see. Yeah, she's taken it into La La Land so far into the future in terms of the fourth dimensional sound recorder that she's just literally said. It's a bloody outrage. It really is.
Well, no, let me sum it up. Back in the 80s, she had one of those recorders. You know, you put the tape in, you press play and record, and all those little things. And she ran out of tape. Now she just needs a big enough hard drive. But she's got a problem, because in 1 billion years, right, when they have what they need to record this sound, they won't hear it, because it's all happening in a vacuum.
I'm going to go on off a little segue after reading these super chats. Whoever that was, go ahead, and then I'm going to go on a slight segue.
I was just going to say, oh dear.
Shout out to Mike, who says, this is the best channel on YouTube. Keep it up. Oh, I really appreciate it, Mike. Thank you very much indeed. I'd be nothing without the panel. Shout out to Godzilla, most prolific YouTube FED super chatter. In 1 billion years, planet Zorton will hear FED for the first time. Shout out to Chocolate. Zortians haven't heard from him yet. Thank you very much for the super chat. And it's reminiscent of Thetans and Scientology, a heliocentric religion, because a lot of what Godzilla wove into that super chat was heliocentric. Almost 100 people watching. Woo-hoo-hoo! Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Really appreciate the support. Okay, so just a side note in terms of something that's happened that I didn't expect to happen. One of the fans of the show, let's just say, to keep it vague, got in touch with me because they liked the sound of how I sounded on the show. And originally they were asking me about how to make their sound work, and I misinterpreted that to mean that they needed help with their audio chain, like how to gain stage or something like that. And this is something that I studied at college, lost interest in when I went into retail and did a whole load of boring jobs. And then obviously got back into when I started doing YouTube in a big way when I started acoustically treating this room. Now, it transpired that that person was actually asking me for help on how to acoustically treat their room. And they said, look, I'll pay you. And just by however it worked out, this person just dropped money on me for me to spend, I don't know, it was 2 or 3 hours tops and a conversation to to explain how acoustics worked in a way that they could take their room from being a relatively good room by dimensions and turn it into a very good room for a recording space for broadcast recording. And at the end of the process, I tell you what, it was like hoovering up a line of cocaine or something. It was like the most amazing thing. I was like, I've just been paid to tell someone about something that I've, off my own back, spent, how long have I been acoustically treating this room? 3 years? 2.5 years? So in that entire time, I've been looking at acoustics the entire time, like almost daily, watching acoustics video, researching. I did it today. It's just something I'm interested in. So you just do it and you just find yourself in a routine of looking up stuff about acoustics. So just to convey that to somebody and then give me money for it was I said it to him afterwards. I was like, that was better than sex. That was just amazing. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you as we're talking about sound, and there's never been a segue that I could weave it into the show.
Well, it's good because you realise that how much you've learned. You've learned so much that you're actually able to actually advise someone else on how to deal with it for themselves. You know, good.
Exactly. Really. I was chuffed that I could, ask a few key questions. What are the dimensions of your room? What are you planning on doing with it? Just a few key things, and then disseminate the importance of covering all of it in the softest possible way, and then point them in the direction of a retailer to buy stuff from. And at the end of the process, they're like, I've ordered it now. I was like, great. Start sticking it up on your walls. Come back to me when you've finished putting them up, and then buy more until you've run out of space. And that's it. Easy. But just, I don't know, it's just very, very good. And I just wanted to segue onto it just because we're talking about sound, but we will get back onto the Wired Witch now. I've managed to share that just because it's something good. It's not often that I'm able to share with my audience, look, I've actually managed to do something off my own back that's earned me money rather than e-begging constantly. So I just thought that success was worth sharing with the audience. Anyway.
Traveled through the universe, but then the next thing that happens is those neutron stars collide. And because of this incredibly high energy state of matter, which you study, it becomes this firework of different explosions. It's really...
Explosions? So something physically exploding? No, these are lights in the sky. Yeah, back to, this is lights in the sky. So twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. You're a neutron star with vast amounts of energy colliding to create a black hole with an event horizon. Up above the star so high. Go on.
Just saying, I think this is what John's been talking about. John Shelton's been talking about when he's talking about high energy, short distance problems.
Right.
Really quite spectacular.
That's right. In fact,
yes. As you look at them through a telescope, which is all you've got.
In fact, when we recorded that for the first time with gravitational waves, we then...
You recorded it with gravitational waves? Let me get it straight. You showed fourth-dimensional space-time bending? No, you didn't. I absolutely assure you.
Pointed telescopes at it.
Oh, you pointed telescopes at it, and then came up with a story about gravitational waves. I see. So what you actually did, and I called it, was pointing a freaking telescope at it. That's what you actually did. You looked at lights in the sky. Comprende? That's what you actually did. Did you physically vary and manipulate anything? No. Did you establish the cause of the effect through suppositional reasoning based on an experiment? No. Did you do any science? No. What did you do? Well, what we just did 10 minutes ago when we babbled total nonsense about what the lights we looked at were. We had no validity, just a lot of stories that we nodded along as we told each other about and confirmed our religious faith in. That's all that actually happened. Quick shout out to JMails24. Really appreciate the super chat. In the words of the all-time greats Brenda and Rumpus, you'll just don't understand. 4 more hours. Smiley face.
Nathan,
thank you for the super chat.
You had a telescope in the past and you used it. Did you record anything with it?
I recorded the lunar eclipse when it went red. That's about it.
Recording to hear the sound, the ringing.
yeah. That's a good one. That is exactly like that. It's like saying he's just described seeing gravitational waves when detailing a light show that he saw in his telescope. That's what he's just detailed, right? Now, take what she said a minute ago about what gravitational waves do and how they ring. So what they're saying is your telescope Yeah? It's not for looking at stuff. Yeah? When you use your eyeballs, you're hearing the gravitational wave with your eyes. That's what they're saying. It is heliocentrism is barking nuts. That's the bottom line here, people. It's bonkers. When Chocolate on the last couple of shows like, these people are on crack. Yeah, it's a bonkers religion. You're all nuts. Please share the show.
So true.
And we're able to see it optically as well. And that
Oh, see it? Weren't you hearing it? Weren't you hearing the fourth dimension? Like ringing and shit. Let's just calm down a little bit. I need to take a breath. They're just nutters, they're not me.
They observe.
Go on.
Just saying, they observe the gravitational waves with their ears.
They
Well,
saw
they
it
could be referring
optically.
to radio telescopes.
No, these aren't radio telescopes they're talking about. I almost dropped that in there in case anybody inferred it, but I'm glad you have.
gave scientists a lot of data.
Yeah, it was, to my knowledge, the most widely studied astronomical event in the history of humanity.
So it was very widely looked at.
Wow.
So when
amazing.
the gravitational waves were recorded...
So what gravitational waves? Right, this is it. I see. No, you didn't know that this was the unicorn constellation. My love, we've been studying the digestive tract of this stuff. It wasn't explosions. It was digestion. Didn't you know? What's that? My bullshit story I made up on the spot after looking at lights in the sky doesn't fly because you've got Einstein, Newton, Huygens and Kepler. Yeah, obviously, though, those heavy hitters make this gravitationally bending. No, love, no. Fourth dimensions aren't what we're seeing here. I am not seeing a fourth dimension here. Nobody is.
What did you call it, Nathan? What is it you saw?
The unicorn constellation. This is the digestive tract. Obviously.
So maybe it's not Einsteinian, but intestinian.
It is intestinian.
And they realized, this sounds like you can reconstruct the shape and size of the mallets of the drum from the sound.
Do I need to say anything? You're all bonkers. You're all bonkers. What else do you want me to say? This is a witch nutter telling you that you're hearing the sky when looking at it because it's a drum. I mean, this is absolutely insane.
You know, it reminds me of...
It all makes sense if you just listen with your eyes, man. Come on, what are you doing?
It reminds me of Monty Python movie, The Holy Grail, where they said if someone weighs more than a trout, then they're a witch. Even that makes more sense than what they're saying.
That checks out.
No, if she's made of... No, if she weighs the same as a duck... No. Why do you want to burn her? Because she's a witch. Well, how do you know she's a witch? Well, she's got a pointy nose. Okay, well, no, there's ways of figuring out if she's a witch. What else do we burn? Well, we burn wood. Okay. Well, what does wood also do? Float. Okay, what else floats? A duck. Okay, so logically, if she weighs the same as a duck, then she's made of wood. And therefore... a witch! Burn her!
That's literally globe logic.
These sounds like neutron stars colliding, not black holes. And so, like you said, there was a trigger for satellites and experiments all over the world.
Satellites and experiments for the sounds of neutron stars versus black holes. What was the observed key? Phenomenon? What chord is it? Is it a chord? What's the note?
B minus. A B minor.
And you can see that, can you? That's what you'd see. D minor.
Yeah, you'd see B minor.
B. All right. You'd see that when you look through your telescope. Gotcha.
To point roughly in the direction that the sound was coming from. So from your...
What the... I don't even need to say anything, do I?
point of view, I mean, they're like two superconducting giant magnets colliding. And
what do they sound like? They sound like an orchestra.
Experiment you could never do on
Not an experiment. You have never done an experiment. You don't even know what it is.
Earth.
I don't think
That's
it's.
just
I don't think
the-
it's too kind to be mocking them.
But they've never collided two super magnets before?
Yes, it sounded amazing.
most tremendous scales and peculiarities of matter.
Scales? La 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 la. Yeah, is that what it is, yeah?
Absolutely. I've heard
I
statistics
bet
like
that
many.
with Nathan, I bet that with the scaling up, they didn't actually then test whether the scaled up version was actually the real thing that happens. I bet they're just asserting it.
No, I'm pretty sure they scaled down fourth dimensional space time, Owen, and they've tested this thoroughly.
Sure they have.
If you look at the serious nature of their faces as they're talking, they actually believe all this stuff.
Right, I've got about a couple of minutes left, but just hovering around 100 people. I didn't do any more shout-outs. So I know if we can get that over 100, we might stay alive a little bit longer, but it looks like we're going to be rounding out shortly unless we don't. Or unless we do get over 100. Then we will stay alive a little bit longer.
What, is everybody sleeping today?
I don't
Come on,
know.
let's
We've had another layer of censorship slapped on top of us, and people keep telling me, they keep sending me messages and showing me screenshots with examples when they're searching for me. So basically, for whatever reason, we are more threatening than we thought we were, and need an extra layer of censorship. So some of it amusing, when people literally show, look, you show up amongst funeral home videos. Okay, right, thanks for sharing.
Crazy.
Okay, but
I mean that checks out. We are having a funeral for the globe, so that checks out.
But you can stop telling me, by the way, people sending me these messages and emails. Okay, thank you. I got the point. I picked up on it almost straight away when it started happening, because it's not vanity, but I do search certain key things like my own name, like the show title, like specific titles of specific shows, old show numbers, things like that. I'll do them periodically and regularly to see what the state of play is for someone doing a search. And yeah, I'll do all the usual things and sign out and all the rest of it, and do it in my own name, and do it in channels that are signed on that are different, that are doing different searches. So I do various different things to get the idea. I spot it, and generally just because I spot it so often, go, ugh. And just that's about it. That's about as much as it does. At least I'm aware. But in this instance, over the last, I don't know how long, recently, people have been telling me about it a lot and showing me examples of it a lot. I'm like, okay, should I praise the fact that, we're obviously right over the target because we're getting more flack? Or do I just e-beg more because that's going to send my numbers downwards, which is obviously the case? We've still got 100 people watching, which is good. But, gone are the days of us ever seeing 300 people watching, like when I was a nobody and had no subject understanding and was producing terrible videos with a terrible mic. Those were the days that they would promote you because you were an idiot, or I was an idiot back then, so worthy of promoting within the subject of flat earth, because I was a numpty idiot and therefore was only going to do harm to the notion of a flat earth and prop up the notion of heliocentrism when defeated with poor arguments. But back then, I got 300 people watching, 300 plus at the peak. Now, like I say, we're appearing in less and less lists and being put to the bottoms of crappier lists, which is the way it is for a flat earther, I suppose.
It doesn't matter because they cannot stop the truth. We keep pushing forward.
I don't even see a problem with the funeral homes at all, because the plot line thickens every time a show comes on.
But in funeral homes, you say, is that by any chance a funeral home for Globers?
That's a grave site.
It's funeral services and churches. It's just at the end of religious lists, and funerals is part of that. But yes. Anyway, I should be more rejoiceful because the fact that we can maintain 100 people watching the current numbers, basically, literally as we speak, is because people share the show. That's the only reason. No one's just going to find their way to this show. The only reason there's 100 people watching is because everyone who's smashed the share button and gone, I agree when Nathan essentially e-begs for shares, which is what I'm doing, because it keeps the numbers higher. And the show's worthy of getting good numbers in front of it. Even if I do say so myself, I'm not ashamed to say it. This is a good show. Anyway, we'll do a little bit longer just because we have got 100 people watching. And I am very grateful to all of you who shared.
Earth masses worth of gold were created, forged in the neutron star collision that caused that. We used to think that most elements in the universe were created in supernova, which is when stars explode, because there's so much violent activity at the center that you need that kind of energy to create new elements.
He's about to throw under the bus the old and busted ways of describing elements being formed in the heart of dying stars. Therefore, rocks are your cousins. So I'll be intrigued to see where he goes after this statement of propping up the ideas being wrong, because he's about to describe it with neutron stars rather than supernova. Let's just see where it goes with this.
The way you do in a bomb, it's basically nuclear fusion.
Sure, but we now think that that kind of fusion happens when two neutron stars collide. If you think,
oh, I see. So the origin stories of how we all became rock cousins has fundamentally changed. You know what? It's amazing how you can just change this premise of how we came to be. Now, my understanding from old and dusty, out-of-date heliocentric rhetoric was that everything coursing through my veins came from the heart of supernova, dying stars. But now what? I'm just going to flip the script, just make up a different story? No, it's more beneficial to describe it this way in a world that isn't real, out where the lights in the skies are massive, vast distances. Shout out to Mario Knows It's God. Says, what's one of your favourite shows by number? All of them. They're all excellent. There are no exceptions. But thank you for asking. What's the show number today? What my favourite show as of today is today's show. Please share it. Thank you for the super chat.
think about it, you have two massive blobs of neutrons. When you smush them together, you've got neutrons colliding. It creates the conditions where new elements can be created.
All right. And what conditions would those be? Have you demonstrated the conditions upon smashing two neutron stars together? Enter the Hadron Collider, right? Start smashing things into each other, quick, sharp, at great speeds.
Yeah, by the way, Nathan, my favorite show from yours is 1001, because it lasted like 3 or like 20 seconds and then you rounded it out.
Well, that's
and I looped it for 4 hours. Remember?
No.
It's on our Winning Bear channel, one of the early uploads.
I vaguely remember me starting, having an immediate issue, and then just rounding out immediately, and then YouTube taking that and rounding and doing it for like a 3-hour video of that non-stop.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Nathan, did I just hear the guy say? Did I just hear the guy say? And I'll summarize: conditions, then collisions, then us.
Yeah, he's describing the presumably the actual story of the formation through nuclear fusion, as she just described, hasn't changed. It's just instead of it happening in supernova, as the elements become heavier and heavier and heavier and get formed, so you end up with gold and platinum and so on at the end of the process, which then at the last dying seconds before the neutron star is formed, it all explodes outwards. So it's all been imploding, forming ever more dense elements, to then explode to deposit all of these materials out throughout the known universe. And obviously, as that process happens through their descriptions of millions of years, lots of heavier elements that will be crucial to form life get made. For them to, over billions of years, come together on whatever rock that will eventually have a soup for the lightning to hit to create life, or whatever their bullshit story is. But that process starts that way with the star. Now they're saying, no, it's not. The process of neutron stars, which are still formed when a star dies, according to their rhetoric, but just doesn't form any elements anymore. Okay, fine. So it's just blasting out the gaseous light that it was burning and is now run out of, therefore an explosion's in order. And the debris of this neutron star will eventually, by chance, smash into another one, and that will form all of the elements that create life. According to the new story, so say us, because we made it up ourselves. Can I read out some super chats? Shout out to The Price of Adam. He says, "You're going against all of science, and I love it." All of pseudoscience. But yes, I appreciate the sentiment. Also, shout out to Mike. Really appreciate the super chat. "Better to have 100 watching quality content." No, Mike. It would be better if 100,000 were watching. No, I understand where you're coming from, and I appreciate the support. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. But no, I'd much rather there was 500. And if there were 500, I'd still not be satisfied. I'd be much happier if there was 1,000. And if there was 1,000, I'd be moaning that I wasn't outperforming PewDiePie. Let's just be honest about this. But no matter what, my dissatisfaction, regardless of the numbers, is never going to change my elation that you have actually shared the show and we have got to 100, which is your sentiment, Mike. So thank you for the super chat. Right, guys, we're gonna round out this live show. Or we got any further bits and bobs that people want to specifically slap onto the end of the live show?
Well, do maths explode like they claim?
I didn't understand a word of that. I don't speak Gaelic.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, do maths explode like they claim? They claim that it's going to be a disaster, and what they're talking about is a mathematical thing. So that would be maths exploding, wouldn't it? Chocolate said yes, so I'll take that as a yes. Chocolate knows. And chocolate.
Okay, to be sure. Anyone else?
What, they don't have exploding math where you come from, Brian? What's good? Falling behind over there?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to round out on that note. So with that, I'll say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a member, and all that good stuff. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panel. Stay tuned if you're watching on an after show, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day. What a lovely day!
Then we're looking for something to create content, and if we can't come up with it, they just shut down the show and blame us, when it's actually him manipulating it.
Yeah, Nathan, stop manipulating.
What are you talking about? You talking about me? Better not be.
Of course we're talking about you. Once you round out, you're the subject.
What?
We want you to sign a contract that you'll not round out the show under any circumstances, except for medical emergencies.
Yeah, a non-round-outable show.
We are still going. We're still recording.
Yeah, but for how long? I mean, we know you're going to round out in 15 minutes, or at least try.
Someone's at my door. Hold
Is
on.
this the first funeral assembly of the FED panel union?
Of the end.
Sorry, Paul?
Is this the FED panel union meeting? Because I think we're still in the after show.
Yeah, well, maybe a union meeting is called for, because there's a lot of pressure being put on the FED panel, the G+ panel, in the after show, to create content, when we've been kept subdued through the whole live show due to a video being played. And then we're getting blamed for him rounding out the show. It's unreal.
Brian, I never seen it that way. You are 100% correct. We're subdued the whole show, and then we get cut off on the after show when it's supposed to be our time.
Yeah, because normally when there's no video being played and we're not responding to anything, like we start off with housekeeping questions, and that leads to something where we end up in a conversation of some kind, and it's like all our intellects are firing. You know, we can't get enough of this, and it comes into the after show, and we're fired up for the after show. Whereas what he does, he creates a situation where our focus is on a video, and then he might decide to not play the video in the after show, kind of like he's doing now, and then do his best to blame us because we're not, fired up because he made sure we weren't. And then he blames us.
No, you're making that up. He doesn't actually say that. He just rounds out and we don't agree with it. He doesn't blame us.
Oh, yes, he does. And he even sometimes will say it.
No, I just wait for it. Me waiting for a gap in air. So if there's like a 4-second gap where someone gathers their thoughts, I'll go, yeah, that's my opportunity to round out. And I do. But Brian's taking that to mean, oh, well, you weren't having a rowdy enough conversation, which isn't the case. And I take on board what you're saying. You're saying what? I'll just rephrase what Brian's saying, and I do take it on board. you're alienating us as a panel by just covering the video and then cutting the show off when we're not 100% engaged in it, and then expecting us to waffle on endlessly in the after show when you bugger off to answer the door like you've just done.
And make a point of not playing any video in the after show to keep us going.
What do you want me to? I did start, but Arwin talked, so I immediately hit the mute button, so I wasn't in the video talking over Arwin.
The heavy elements after some number are created in neutron star collisions.
So you are already a PhD student. You know a lot about gravity, but what do you think you've taken away from this conversation?
Well, I've definitely taken away that the way that we think about gravity today is very different from how Newton thought about it.
And you lied to the children about it. That different way that is... She's nodding along. So she knows she lied to the children. She's just agreed. Might have been subtle and quiet, but she just agreed with him. Very different to how you just brainwashed two children with in this exact video. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You're a lying witch.
And that even though we have a very good understanding, there's lots of things that we don't fully understand. There's still...
But you're still prepared to tell the stuff that you don't understand and is wrong. Yeah, the new stuff wasn't told to the children at the beginning of this video. The wrong stuff was taught to the children, wasn't it?
No, but look, they got a great understanding, even though they don't understand anything about it, right? So they literally don't. We know, like, we understand it really great, but we don't understand everything about it. So do you then understand it great when you don't understand everything about it? Seems a little bit doublespeak to me.
And what is it that they're claiming to have understanding of in the first place? Do you know what I mean? Show us this thing in reality. It doesn't exist.
You're not listening hard enough.
Still a lot of questions to be answered, which I think is really exciting.
Yeah, just stick your ear up to it. I mean, your eye. You'll see it. I mean, hear it.
See, you're a scientist. Isn't the best part being able to ask the questions?
Oh, yeah.
The best part is answering them if you're a scientist. Putting things through the scientific method to establish if something causes something that is an effect you're studying. Asking questions. Any idiot can do that. You know, some idiot on the corner can just babble off questions that he hasn't got the answer to all day long. Meaningless.
Yeah, but that's science, Nathan.
No, it isn't.
Asking questions is science.
No.
Observing something and then saying something about it is science. That's the science they're talking about. There's no method
fallacy
involved here.
What you're doing is taking part of the scientific method and ascribing it to the whole. So no, a part of scientific method is to observe natural phenomena occurring and then ask the question, I wonder why that happened. So yeah, you've got to ask a question, why did that happen? But that's not science when you just say asking questions. No, asking why something happened when you observe a phenomena is part of the scientific method. So that's a composition fallacy. Arwin.
On their part.
No, on your part.
Yeah, but I was translating what they're doing. I agree. Yeah, that's not proper scientific method, but it seems to be the scientific. That seems to be the science that they're using and they're talking about.
Absolutely
right?
correct. Yes, their entire Stolen Valor gig is them literally performing that fallacy. Exactly, Arwin. Yes. So they're taking part of the scientific method and saying, well, look, for example, but different to the one she's using currently, we made a prediction. Therefore, science. Science is all about predictions. It's a prediction. Or we had variables. Therefore, science. No, science is all about variables. No. Your variable is your independent, presumed to cause the effect that you're studying. And varying it will prove whether or not it causes it. So yeah, all of those things are true, but you've got a method that you've got to follow. They just take part of it and slap their story onto that little part of science to make it seem more valid. Yes, Arwin.
Can I ask Neil a question?
Arwin, you got to verify whether
Hold on, this is a big moment.
You're being
Hold on a second, D. Rose. This is a massive moment. Yes, absolutely, you may ask Neil a question, Brian.
Thanks, Nathan. Neil, when you were growing up in Brooklyn, did any of the mobsters ever use maths explosions when they were having problems with each other?
Never.
Do we have to have the Irish and the Yank comparing Molotov cocktail ingredients. I mean, this isn't really.
Hold on a second.
Getting really rebellious
We're
here.
talking about mass disasters here.
Wait a second.
Well,
That only takes
where
place in
I'm
the
from, they
civilian-
used to shoot knives.
I forget
Shoot
it.
knives? That sounds wrong.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, Neil. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Neil.
That is in the Sicilian Mafia, but I wanted to ask you a question. Didn't I hear one time that without experiment, it's not science?
Yeah, that's right.
I just wanted to say, Aaron, when you say things like that, specify whether you're being Baldwin or whether you're being Aaron, because that's why Nathan responded that way. Because anybody listening from the outside that isn't familiar with Baldwin, your alter ego, would kind of be like, yeah, what he's saying. Yeah.
Yeah, but he wasn't being Baldwin. He
that's
was
what-
summarising the point of the opponent. Although I do get what you're saying.
I know.
I did it with a bit of sarcastic tone instead. But that might have not been picked up right away.
Precisely. Yep.
And what's
Oh,
so
we're on to the next
shocking
one.
about Neil being asked the question?
Hold on, I just need to clear it with Brian. We're on to the next person now, Brian. Will it ruin the mood if I, put a little bookmark in at 24:54?
You're in the mood. What do you mean?
I don't want to cause any offence,
Offence? I don't follow you.
Okay, there's no need to be quite so high pitched, given you were moaning about me less than 5 minutes ago.
Is Nathan taking the mic right now?
I just talking about your tactics lately. Your tactics, like you think that we don't know your tactics. Like the other day when you said, anyway, with that, blah, 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 and you were gone. Yeah, underneath your breath, right? Stuff like that. We know this. We know that. And the union is paying full attention to it.
The union?
Yeah, the G Plus union.
You're going to have to make a manifest for that to make that official, Brian.
Yeah, Neil is our he collects all the union fees because he's the closest thing to a mobster.
I'm the union rep. I'm the union rep. And this is a testament. Hold on, this is a testament to the show, Nathan. We're gutted when you end it. This could be going on for 5 hours, and when you round out, we'll still complain.
Yeah, because the union rep unions are always corrupt, so we need somebody who's got ties to or even is just Italian, ties to the mob or just Italian, because we need someone corrupt to be the rep. That's it.
What an outrage, eh, Neil? What an outrage. Go on, have a dig at his Irishness. That's the only way to
Nathan,
respond to such things.
Nathan, let me remind you that this is the first union that's trying to force the employee to give more work hours.
I say,
yeah, we want more hours.
That's true. Fight racism with racism, though. That's my attitude.
4 hours without pay. Did anybody get their paycheck this week? If not, I got to go see the boss.
I didn't. And I'm going to complain. Who am I complaining to?
I got €5 from Nathan 2 days ago.
You don't get to complain, Nathan. You're outside the union. It's the G Plus union.
I've been sending.
You're the one person who can't be in it.
Every now and again, I send Arwin $5, right? And I typically on the message in PayPal go for coffee because just by coincidence, about 3 years ago, Arwin was like, "I'm really strapped for cash and I haven't got any coffee." So I was like, "Oh well, I just happen to have had a PayPal or whatever that day." So I'm like, "Well, I'll share the love. You can have some of it." So I'd give it to Arwin for coffee. And ever since then, I've just, as habit, put for coffee on it. And then one of Arwin's shows recently is like, "You do realise I don't drink coffee for ages?" I was like, "No." Shows how much I pay attention. There we go.
I got mint tea for it instead.
For mint tea, I'll put that on the next super chat, which is actually PayPal. That's the only reason I do it. With anybody else, I'd send them a super chat. But you explicitly say that you'd rather have PayPal. So I'm like, okay. When I'm inclined to send you a super chat, I would just revert to giving it as PayPal. That's just how it works. So normally you'd see my super chat going by, but you don't want me to give super chats. Fine, no worries. But when I'm inclined, that's how I do it. And then what you do, fortunately, is you'll shout it out. "Oh, thanks for the PayPal." That's normally all
Yeah.
anybody wants when they super chat, right? They just want an acknowledgement that they're part of the show and that they're contributing to the show. Makes them feel part of the show. And I totally get it.
Indeed. And my current backup channel isn't monetized, by the way, so you couldn't even send a super chat if you wanted to.
Indeed. When did you get the main channel back?
It's already back. I'm just keeping it dormant until the strike periods are all over.
When's that, I mean?
Because I don't want to risk one more strike, because then it might be all gone.
Oh, I see. No, that's very sensible. But just stick out. Maybe this is an opportunity to start making some edited videos. You know, take some highlights from your show and edit them together.
I'm not a star at editing. I've never really been good at that.
Nobody's
I
good
don't
at
have the right
editing.
programs for it either. So I don't know. It's not my thing.
No, nobody likes editing, right?
Yes, but I'm also not good at it, and it takes a lot of time. And I don't know. I'd rather just put a comment in my own video, giving a timestamp as to when a specific subject is starting. Right? Much
Fair enough.
easier.
You're saying it's a lot of work, and it is. I easily spend 4 times the amount of time in front of the iPad editing than I do making the show itself.
Right, and during that time, I'm watching other shows that I follow. So
what you're saying
just,
is, it's too much work. I'm too busy watching YouTube. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, fair enough. Speaking of this, right?
You putting on more of the video?
No, I've just said that's what I was saying earlier. I was saying like we've just ended that one guy. So we're on to the next. So we'll cover the next guy in the next show, as it was a natural break because they're changing dude.
All right, sorry, I didn't catch on to what you meant.
No, that's what I was talking about. That's fine.
Anyway, it was a great ball bust this Saturday.
Excellent, it was. Yeah, I wanted to join in more, but I couldn't. Yeah,
one of the best ones.
Excellent information. Pun intended.
Right, and it was great that we all were just kind of on one line to deepen our mutual understanding. Right, we didn't get like into a ruckus, and that's really great because then we deepen our understanding altogether, and that really happened.
Right.
I learned a few things.
See, I was on a delivery and my son was with me listening to it. And he's trying to tell me that, how did he phrase it? He said that the Big Bang proves that there is a God. Yeah, that's how he said it. The Big Bang proves that there is a God.
Yeah, well, no, but the Big Bang doesn't prove anything other than people can make stuff up.
Yeah, it's just a story.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm saying a Big Bang, that there is no Big Bang. I think he was trying to say when people say that it started with a Big Bang, that they're actually debunking themselves because that would prove that there has to be a God.
Sounds like he's just saying that you can't get anything from nothing.
No, it doesn't prove that when they say there's a Big Bang, it doesn't prove that there's a God. It proves that their claim is a first law of thermodynamics violation. So you're talking about the ontological primitives, right? There's 2 options when you get to that point. And one way of describing that is to rewind the arrow of time to the beginning, which is to say that you're trying to establish the cause of entropy. Now, it's a grandiose assertion to say, well, God. But it's strictly true because when you get to the ontological primitives, the question is, did nature create it all? Answer, Big Bang, nature created itself. Yeah? Or was there an outside influence, a creator? Well, if there's an external entity creating it all, then the rules that are made by the external creator do not apply to the creator. In other words, it's perfectly within the realms of logic to assert that answer to a question that only has 2 answers. But when you look at the alternative with the Big Bang being asserted, that's not saying there's a God. It's saying my assertion violates how nature works. very much bound within the rules of nature. First law of thermodynamics being the specific law of nature that had been violated. What's the first law? Energy can't be created or destroyed. It only changes. Well, that law precludes their claim. You can't have nature creating itself if nature cannot create itself by way of a law of nature. It's just absurd. So what are you left with? The only other alternative, which is God.
How do we know that? But how do we know that at the okay, say God, let's just say hypothetically, I think what my son is saying, it all started at the Big Bang when God created everything. That's when everything went into effect, all the laws of nature.
Yeah.
I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah, but then he's speculating about the origin story. Now, I'm not going to say that you've got more validity when you quote from the Bible in terms of Genesis story, but the origin is decided at the point that he describes that. Now, if he's saying that the external force created the Big Bang, okay, but you've already solved the ontological primitive of that point. You've already got an external force that you've not got any means of disseminating or figuring out what that external force did at the beginning. You can only speculate. But you've already concluded the ontological primitives question. Which one was it? Was it nature creating itself? No external entity. Just a Big Bang. Now, if your son says, nah, the external entity created a Big Bang. So first we have the external entity. Okay, I couldn't give a toss what he says after that. Because it's not a Big Bang, is it? Nature's not creating itself. Well, what God made a Big Bang. Yeah, that's still an external creator, though, isn't it? So you've already solved the ontological primitives. Well, their description, the Big Bang, that's not being created by God. That's nature poofing itself into existence from nothing. Mathematically dividing by zero and getting everything in the known existence.
Yeah, that's outright ridiculous. Go ahead.
Sorry, Neil. Yeah, I couldn't think of what to call it, and I wanted to say it on Saturday night, listening to the show, but I couldn't get in there. If you can imagine, there has definitely been times for all of us, nearly, I'd say everyone in flat Earth, in the flat Earth arena, on our side of the argument, where they have been lectured on the laws of thermodynamics by a baller who is also an atheist. It's like, what would you call that? It's like the laws of thermodynamics can't exist for heliocentrism, for globe heliocentrism, and it can't exist for atheism. So how could you lecture someone on those things when those things can't exist within your paradigm? Wow. I don't know what to call it. I don't know what to call it. I don't know if you call it. Don't think you can call it Dunning-Kruger. I don't know what to call it. But you see that paradox there. It's like we've all had it happen to us at some point, where one of these guys on the other side tries to lecture us on the laws of thermodynamics, completely ignoring the fact that those things can't apply to your belief system. Do you know what to call it, Neil or Nathan or Neil?
Will knows what to call it. The rumpus.
Just hypocrisy, I suppose.
Yeah, it is. It's like me lecturing. I don't know. I don't know. I can't even give it an analogy for it. You're not going to. It's bizarre. You know, I'm lecturing someone on what a wheel is when I don't believe in wheels. When wheels can't exist within my belief. You know, this kind of thing. It's like, you know, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? We've all had it happen to it. I've had it happen where someone on the other side tries to lecture me on the laws of thermodynamics. You know, I've had that happen several times where they tried to do this. You know, you get a big long text, somebody, you know, talking a load of jargon. It's like what you're trying to detail there, and they try to be smart by making it as jargon heavy as possible. What you're trying to detail there has no connection to what you're claiming. It can't. Those things can't. The first law, including the second and third, then can't exist. It doesn't apply within your belief system.
Yeah, that's what Rumpus said, right, Brian? Doesn't Rumpus say that?
Well, yeah, he did say that about. He did say that, Neil. He said the second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply to the Earth. Within his paradigm, it doesn't. He was actually being honest in it, whether he knew it or not. Sorry, Chocolate.
I was going to say it's that contradiction again. Whatever it is that you're trying to explain has to be different than what you actually believe. Because in reality, you can't argue these types of things, but they have to believe it, right?
Yeah, it's bigger version. It's a bigger and more fundamental, much more fundamental. Well, maybe just more fundamental version of them trying to lecture us on perspective, something that doesn't exist within their model. Perspective doesn't exist in your model. So why are you trying to lecture me on it when it can't exist within your paradigm? It's worse than that, isn't it? Like, I mean, what they're saying, what they're claiming is worse than that when it comes to the laws of thermodynamics, because they are natural laws.
Yeah, I mean, imagine first hearing about this and telling a bunch of stupid so-called flat earthers that perspective doesn't exist. You stupid flirt, right? that doesn't exist. That's not a thing. That just exists in art class, right? And then years and years and years later, what are you telling the same flat earthers? Oh, you guys forgot about perspective.
Yeah,
it's like, really?
Yeah, it's like that, and even that when we're talking about perspective, even though it's a much more easier to relate thing to the average layman or laywoman, lay person, let's just say, that the whole perspective argument and it not existing within their maths, as if that's the thing that's hijacked by their maths. But on a fundamental level, the laws of thermodynamics, for someone who has actually spent time in real science, to explain that to them, something they probably never thought about. It's like, do you realize that within that paradigm, these things have to not be true, have to not exist?
Or definitely
And I
haven't
bet you
thought
most
about
people
it.
never thought of it.
I was going to say, definitely haven't thought about it. Again, it's going to be, I don't know how conspiracy cats always ends up being good examples in this regard, but so they do understand these principles and will disseminate them to us, like we're the idiots that need educating in something that they appreciated and we did not. So when Conspiracy Cats comes along and starts detailing the Rayleigh criterion and how it makes things disappear, like, he did realise that was an effect that needed to be taken into consideration, but just didn't realise that it destroys his own paradigm. So I don't know if you remember when he started doing that, I just took a clip of him describing it and then played Oh Happy Day over the top of it. Around about the time he just disappeared, he just vanished, gave up his channels to other people. It's like, well, at the point that I think it was in that video, he said, I'll give you a flat earth when he's detailing how to acquire an elevation angle because he's measuring an angle to something.
Yeah, because he had to. He had no choice.
Yeah, I remember that, Nathan. I remember that the song "Oh Happy Day" being played. I remember that. Yeah, because they're trying to detail things that can't exist within their paradigm. Elevation angles, perspective, the laws of thermodynamics. None of these things can exist within their paradigm. They can't. Gas requires a container in reality. Gas pressure requires a container in reality. Within their paradigm, there is no need for a container. So that means the second law of thermodynamics does not apply to their paradigm. There was so many things on the show the other night that I have to listen back to it actually because I was busy and doing stuff.
The boat would be miles too small to see. And when I point that out, he runs away. Yeah, thanks, cats. You got people from your own side telling me how the Rayleigh criterion works. Oh, happy day.
Yeah, but Nathan, he'll be in the after show. Aussie Meisty claiming that you made up things like angle of attack and all that other nonsense.
Sorry, he came here and told me about how the Rayleigh criterion worked. All I did was ask him where it was in Earth curve maths. And the simple answer is, it isn't. But they're all telling me how this effect can make things disappear into the distance through a limited angle, diffraction limit. They're telling it to me. Oh, happy day.
It doesn't really matter. Oh, go ahead, Brian. I know you're trying to get in this.
The boat would be...
Uh-oh.
Are you finished playing it?
Yeah, it wasn't the video I'd hoped for. What that was a shorts video with me detailing it, but in the background on the video itself, it's Scott Katz's video with him drawing out the diffraction limit and showing his audience what the Rayleigh criterion is. But there we go. I can't find it in a pinch, basically. That wasn't what I was hoping for.
Well, maybe have it for tomorrow's show, maybe at the start or something. Because how many times have they made videos? Has our opposition made videos of detailing things that have nothing to do with their claims? I mean, over the years, they've been constantly doing this. It's like, and that is how bloody blah works. It's like, yeah, but that can't happen within your paradigm. You know, they don't give it any thought beforehand. They just make these videos as if we need educating on these things. And we might have been pointing out for years beforehand that this thing that you're detailing in your video for 3 or 4 years beforehand, we're telling you can't exist within your model. And you think we need educating on this? Like, we're not the one who needs we don't need educating on it. You need to understand that what you're claiming makes this thing that you're detailing in your video impossible. So either the thing you're detailing in your video is reality, or your paradigm is reality. Which is it, you know?
Telling me about how the Rayleigh criterion works when it's not working in your Earth curve maths.
But if I move these objects closer together, or I take them much further away, these diffraction patterns will start to get closer together. Now, there is a limit to how close they can get before I actually can't tell them apart anymore.
When the brick actually occupies a...
That's it.
Yeah. He's detailing what happens when things get very small. Something that can't happen within his paradigm.
Well, why would he take the time to do that? In their paradigm, things getting small isn't what causes things to disappear. That would be the Earth curve. So why would he take the time to describe something that kind of sounds like perspective? Strange.
Yeah, because within their paradigm, nothing gets smaller with distance. It's blocked by Earth curve only. You know, Nathan has been saying it for years and years and years and years. And it's one of those things that a lot of people don't pay attention to, you know, enough. It's like, no, perspective hijacking, Earth curve calculator. That's what it is. Nothing changes in size in orthographic view. There is no angular size change in orthographic view. There's no perspective size change.
There's no anything
in orthographic view.
Do you remember when Tim Osman listed someone else's video, admittedly, that had one side of the list with, here are all the things that flat earthers claim about the horizon and things that happen at it. Number 1, diffraction limit. Number 2, area of circle of confusion. Number 3, dirty air. And the list just keeps going on and on and on. Shoaling, high tides, blah, blah, blah. Endless lists of stuff. And then in the right column, you've got Earth curve. There's nothing else in the list. That's the only reason things disappear at the horizon. It's the only reason. So there's one assertion. If something's disappeared in the distance, it's Earth curve. So when the other day on one of the videos, I forget which, they had a picture of New York. Wow, that's a nice, refreshing change. Statue of Liberty. Why can't we see the torch? Earth curve? I know, that's the only reason things disappear in Earth curve maths. Here's the Earth curve maths. Here's the distance. Should we or shouldn't we see it? No, it should be gone. Really? Because of Earth curve? No, we're talking about the torch. Oh yeah, has that caught you out? Because there's no other account for anything other than Earth curve in those maths. So pick something above the horizon that has disappeared and ask them why. Because they can only give you one answer. Earth curve got in the way. What of the torch? That's disappeared because it's too small? Definitely not.
Yeah, because I think he had over 80 things in that list, didn't he? There was over 80 things in the list that we supposedly claim, and on his list, on the globe list, there was just Earth curve. That was it. One thing, everything, all natural and optical effects every single one of them our call. Do you remember when this is something I'm just thinking about there. We don't get it now too much now. It still does happen, still happening, but not with us. Where they present to one of us or on this show an observation, right? And they won't give you any, and you ask them for details, and they won't give you any. Where was it? Where did it happen? What time of day did it happen? You know, this kind of stuff. What was the camera height? And you just don't get any details. This one observation that made something look like it was blocked by, you know, a physical hill, right? This one observation. And before 2020, we used to get these all the time. And it got to the point where you ask them for what's the details. It doesn't matter what the details are. There's our call. You know what I mean? They wouldn't give us the details because then we'd pull it apart and see what it really is. Often the time it was something like a tidal bore, where a river is running into the sea, and they get an observation while there's an incoming tide that comes up over the top of the river.
I remember.
You know what I mean? So
I remember Miles the Liar Davis going out, right? And he told his audience he's going to go out with all these flash cameras, and he's even got pictures of himself on this hill, looking out at some other hill in the distance, with all these cameras on tripods. And at the end, the observation that we get presented with comes from this shitty pocket camera, or from his phone, or something like that. Just a crap picture. And you're like, where's all the other pictures? Now, at the time, we had no idea why you would cherry pick that particular camera with a nice tiny little aperture versus the one with the nice wide lenses and wide apertures and the big professional cameras. Well, I wonder why. Now we know. We know exactly why you would pick that camera, because the one with the smallest aperture is the one that's going to induce the diffraction limit where he needs it to be at the quickest point. So all of the decent professional pictures that won't have given him the result he needed were all thrown out, and he just cherry-picked the one from the shitty camera. Now, fast forward from there, it was probably a couple of years. Everyone's on their tables and flat surfaces with iPhones, with tiny little apertures, getting things to disappear at a very short distance right against the deck, because you can induce that effect. So you scale it up a little bit to a few miles, and the camera that's going to give you the effect best is the one with the least, smallest aperture. So that's what we ended up with. Just cherry pick whichever one that's giving them the effect. Never show us, or give us any, like you said, historical information about what it would be. You'd have to drag it out of them. But what you're describing is someone just showing you two boats with a horizon obscuring the bottom of one of them. They go, there you go, Earth curve. Well, what time of day was this taken? Earth curve. No, how high was the observer? Earth curve.
And if I can add just to credit, and I'm not saying he's the only one, but for example, on our side, I'm sorry.
No, go on, D.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying real quick. I was saying, and on the other side, on our side, not to give him all the credit, but because it's always been done, especially from this team. But credit to people like Ben from Taboo Conspiracy, who when he does any video to debunk and refute Earth curve, he uses the hyper, as QE says, hyper specificities to break down the time of the day, the weather, the climate, whatever, the so-called atmospheric changes, the distance. He even breaks it up and expands and shows you the distance. He breaks down all the details before even demonstrating the refutable evidence that proves that it was an Earth curve. So, like you said, it's totally the opposite on our side. We give the specificities before we even demonstrate, just to let everybody know. Before you ask all these questions, here you go. They don't even have to ask the questions. It's already provided prior to, now let's proceed and show you what we mean. I'm just saying that. Am I right or wrong?
So I threw in Master D, the famous unorthodox quote, which we should probably call "What happens when a glober forgets that Earth curve is
disappearing 500 feet when the globe model predicts the horizon is 2,600 feet away. So what's blocking the boat if it's not at the horizon yet?
I don't see anything blocking the boat. I see the resolution. I see the camera being unable to resolve the boat.
Welcome to Flat Earth.
Welcome to Flat Earth, my friend. Snacks to the back, bathrooms to the left, DJs taking requests, and smoke them if you got them. Welcome, Unorthodox. Unorthodox.
Doesn't disappear. It just
you just snatched your own wig off. Unorthodox.
Look, this video I just.
Yeah.
I remember that.
To answer your question, Daryl, so it was left with a bit of a pause. I'm not going to try and... I'm not suggesting that this is me trampling on Ben. Excuse me. Taboo conspiracy. Because that description that you gave took place at a time where we were progressing through swathes of ignorance about flat Earth. And now, in 2023, without hopefully causing any offence whatsoever to Ben, because I wouldn't have it any other way that we took that journey of discovery, including what Ben did. But it was actually Ben falling victim to a burden of proof reversal fallacy. He has no claim about the horizon. Now, you said at the end, debunking, proving that it's not Earth curve. Hold on. That's not our burden. We don't disprove something that someone else is making a positive claim for. You say it's Earth curve. Prove it. Let's see what you've got. That's your claim. Let's take that claim apart. Now, I'm sure that is exactly what Ben would have been doing. Here is their claim. Here's the Earth curve calculator claim that Earth is a sphere-edge horizon. Here's me showing that that can't be the case. I get that. But it is really down to them to prove that it is. It's their burden. Now, as of 2020, Black Swan. We've taken their assertion in the positive, formulated into a logical syllogism, and then offered it back to them. Logical consistency argument. And it fails. So at that point, beyond 2020, I mean, we don't have to ever go back to the horizon and start explaining why it is and what it does, how it works. Now, I say that from a position where we spent a huge amount of time arguing from a losing position about the begging the question, proof of nothing perspective, hijacking Earth curve calculator. So you could say, well, who are you to say that I can't go out now saying this isn't Earth curve, look, I can prove it, when you did exactly that for 2 years and you argued about it with the curve calculator and a load of fundies on your show. That was then. Now we know better. Now we know it's a burden of proof reversal fallacy to try and disprove a positive claim when it's down to them to prove it's true.
Yeah, we built up a huge. It would be interesting to see just how many observations were taken from 2015 to 2020. Because even after that, what happens? A lot of people who are making observations and lots of observations, they got on the wrong side of YouTube with the COVID thing, and they got their channel deleted. So there's a lot of observations of stuff not being Earth curve, let's just say, even though it's a reversal of the burden of proof. It is 100%, and we all fell for it up to a point. But the thing about it is that how many observations took place? Do you know what I mean? It showed
a lot,
it's
and I
not
think most prominent.
a globe.
Sorry, yeah. I think the most prominent ones were the airplane infrared footage. Remember that? That one, really showed it was all moving on a flat plane, like nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely. Jay told him media, but what was the absolute end of the whole thing was the Black Swan example photograph. I call it the example photograph because the ballers keep thinking it's just one photograph. They don't understand they don't understand their own model, which means that the horizon is not geometric even in their own model, and they don't understand the argument.
Well, speaking of that, Nathan, right after that audio you just played, I did throw another one in there. It's like a throwback of right after the Black Swan just came out. I don't know if you want to play it.
I want to know why for all these fucking years we were told that boats were going over a physical geometric horizon, aka the curve.
Nobody said that. Nobody said they're going over the physical geometric horizon.
Fucking did.
They said it's going over.
Yeah, nobody said that. They said the physical horizon. Be honest with
They
yourself.
never said it's
The
going over
physical geometric horizon.
They said it's going over the.
No, the chocolate. I want you to be honest with me. Did anyone ever say they're going over the physical geometric horizon? Or they say the physical horizon?
The curve of the Earth.
The curve of the Earth?
That's right. The curve of the Earth. The physical horizon.
Curve of the Earth.
What?
Geometric.
Oh, the double speaker. The curve of the Earth is the geometric.
No one ever said the physical geometric horizon, man.
Kosho, the curve
There's
of
a
the
term
Earth
that
is
you
the
guys just
horizon.
brought up like the past 3 months.
Kosho, the curve of the Earth is the geometric horizon.
The curve of the Earth is the geometric horizon. The one that you see is not that geometric horizon. The one you see is that location with refraction.
So the one you see is Earth curve, but the one you see isn't Earth curve.
Wow, that was
I know
like
that was a bit. I know that was a bit of a hot mess because that was on 24/7. But that was right after the Black Swan, and they're still scrambling to see how they're going to argue whether the geometric horizon Earth curve is the same thing that they've been arguing for years. I thought that was pretty funny.
Of course, the horizon is a geometric Earth curve, but nobody ever claimed the geometric Earth curve. I mean, come on.
You know what that sound like? That sound like you punched me in my nose, but you didn't punch me in my face. No, you punched me in my nose, but not in my face.
Yeah, it's kind of close to it.
It's close. It's not quite accurate. It's more like I punched myself in the face, not in my nose, in my face.
Remember, Chocolate? They started claiming that it was the straw man. The Black Swan argument was a straw man. They started saying, we never claimed it was physical. It's a straw man.
Yep. Yeah, the first couple of months after the Black Swan was freaking fantastic.
It was
The
worse than
shit that would come out of their mouths. Sorry, Nick.
I was going to say that it was worse than that because they said the P statement's a straw man. Well, the P statement is Earth's a sphere radius 3959. We never claimed that. So that's your primary claim.
That was the best. That was the best right there. The radius of the Earth is a straw man. Thanks, Clovers.
Right, it all just collapsed in on itself. They didn't know what to do with it, so it all just collapsed.
And then what happened? At the point that they're like, so what? Yeah? At that point, with that nonchalant attitude floating around the anti-flat Earth arena, Mr. Sensible debates Mitchell from Australia and just because, no, so what? Right? Says, at best you've debunked the radius of the Earth.
Yep. Classic.
And he claimed that he was being taken out of context there. I don't think he understood the context of what he was, the severity of what he was saying.
Do you want me to give you the full lead up? I can give you the full lead up. Quote, Mitchell from Australia, if Earth is a sphere radius 3959 miles, then every distance to horizon measurement can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, and the Black Swan shows it's beyond that. End quote. Response from Mr. Sensible, at best you've debunked the radius of the Earth, but it's still a sphere. End quote.
Yeah, Mr. Sensible tried to come back after that and state, he tried to say that he was being taken out of context. And what he was actually stating was that the Earth could be the globe Earth could be a bit bigger or whatever, completely missing the point that the horizon's not geometric, so there is no globe Earth.
I didn't know that.
It can't be bigger.
If that's his response in rebuttal, oh, right, what I actually meant contextually, I'll take it at face value. Okay, Mr. Sensible's response is to say, no, what I meant when I said, at best you've debunked the radius of Earth at 3959, therefore it might be 3958. Okay, fine. That's his response. Let's take that as read. Fine. No, it can't change. It's back-engineered from the elevation angle measurements to the navigation stars, most importantly Polaris, to give you latitude. So the radius, when converted by Haversine onto a sphere, must match 3959 miles. It cannot be anything else. Not a little bit more, not a little bit less. It has to back engineer into those star positions at their GP at the times that are predicted for them to be there. That's how the model is created. So it's got to be 3959. No other value will work.
Exactly. It's completely confined to the exact size of the length of two corresponding longitude lines. Exactly that. It can't, because it's the latitude and longitude grid confines it.
Yeah, so there's no changing the radius value. Once we debunk the radius value, that's it. Game over.
I think a lot of flat earthers didn't a lot of flat earthers start having arguments with them about, they start bringing up refraction. A lot of flat earthers they start arguing with them about refraction instead of understanding that, no, you remember you saying it, Nathan, flat earthers don't realize when they've won. It's like, no, we've won. It's over.
Yep.
We've won. And they want, and that's what, exactly, Chocolate. And you know that's the only thing, the only reason that the argument is still going on is because flat earthers didn't realize when they had won.
Yeah, but I dropped that.
With them
I can say this now. I dropped that pretty quickly, right? Yes, I did used to say, don't recognize when you've won. And what I could have done if I'd have laboured that point at that moment, what is this, 3 years ago, right, was to stress the importance of the tangent requirement. Like, you need a straight line to the horizon. It's your geometric assertion. That's part of the geometry. It's the base of the geometry. You've got to have a straight line to a horizon on a sphere for your geometry. Okay, that would have been, I wouldn't have given it that concisely, but that's what I could have taken the direction of, you don't know when you've won. Why didn't I? Well, I'll tell you why. Because of the long game that I played instead. At some point, I recognised that this ignorance was devastating. And it's far better to drag that out to highlight how devastating it is. Ruhif being a case in point. At the point that he asked you in your comments, what's wrong with having a bent line to the spherical surface? When all I've done for the last 2 years is say, how's that geometric horizon working out for you, Ruhif? That's me asking him how the straight line to the tangent point of his sphere he imagines he's living on is working out for him. That straight line that died with the black swan. So now, what is it, 2 or 3 years later, I can put on a really dumb voice and go, what's that, Ruthie? Why can't you have a bent line? Yeah, don't you know what a fucking tangent is, you retard? Yeah, that's what I can do now. And really rub it in. Just how stupid Ruhif is. I can really rub it in. Like, put the dumb voice on, totally justified. 3 years to figure out that you need a tangent. What's that? You got a bent? What's wrong with having a bent line, you dumbo? Yeah, that's the long game. Now, had I have laboured to my own side, I recognise when you won, you wouldn't have Ruhif 3 years down the line asking you, the flat earther, with what's wrong with a bent tangent? Yeah, that's why. So now, if you're out there, Rufy, yeah, now we know how that geometric tangent point's working out for you, don't we? Yeah, not well. To the point where I'm absolutely humiliating you. Yeah? Now, it didn't only take 3 years for you. I reckon it's 5 years for some people who are even more stupid than you, Ruhif. I mean, we really will be scraping the bottom of the barrel by the time those Mongols get it. But it's only taken you 3 years, hasn't it, sunshine? You'll ask us again, what's wrong with having a bent line? You complete dumbo? Yeah, that's the long game.
Right.
By the
and
way-
long game, he's
by the
reaching
way, I can
beyond with ridiculous statements like meaning of words are meaningless. What was it again?
The definition of words are meaningless
Definition,
or something.
right. I mean, he's gone there. I think you broke him, Nathan. I think you really broke him with that.
No. Look to the people that really were broken. Like Cats. Cats was broken. Ruhif, he's been bent. He'll snap eventually. Cats got broken. Things like him telling us, because he worked in the world where we were dumb, he was the smart teacher, we just needed educating and we'd understand how stupid we were about the flat earth ideas. So then he needs to tell us about how the diffraction limit works, and I'll give you a flat earth, because it's the only way it'll work. And when we point that back out to him, broke him. He gave up his channels, gave one of them to Mr. Sensible, gave the other one to MC Toon, and off he fucked, right? Because he was broken. And it would break me if I thought the person I was talking to was so stupid that I pointed out something to them and they pointed out that what broke my worldview. Yeah, that would break me. Ruhif? Nah, Dunning-Kruger's keeping him bent.
Okay, if you call it bent.
The one who really,
either way, fine.
Yeah, Darwin.
the one who really sounded broken though was Mr. Soundly when he came back into the fray after the Black Swan, because supposedly this was the guy who was touted with having actually caught curvature on film, right? Like everybody thought that this guy had curvature on film, right? And he comes back after the Black Swan, and someone says geometric horizon to him, and what does he say? Oh, that's word soup.
Oh God, remember that? Ugh.
So the guy who's got the curvature on film, like the Lake Pontchartrain, and as a matter of fact, I found the show where Unorthodox, the same guy we played the clip from before, actually came in here and said that Lake Pontchartrain was built as a monument to the curve of the Earth.
Yeah,
actually,
that's right.
I actually got that one. I found that one, but yeah,
Jesse
so
Kozlowski.
yeah, no, it was Unorthodox who said it.
But
So
it
I
came
don't
from
know if
Jesse
he quoted
Kozlowski
that
originally.
Oh, that's where he quoted it from. And then you hear Nathan in the back, like, can someone put quotes on that? The monument, the curve of the Earth. So yeah, Mr. Sonley came back, and I guess that picture of the curve, the only one that we've seen, supposedly, doesn't know what the geometric horizon is. Thinks it's word soup. That's pretty awesome.
They never claimed it was physical.
Oh yeah,
I want to
Except
add.
they do it all the
wanna-
time when they try to show it on the picture.
I just want to add, and I speak for all of the people in the chat that watch the late shows, the release members only shows and the live show. Nathan, we are hysterically amused and crack the fuck up when you do that dumb voice, and we want you to keep using it accordingly because I think it really stabs them in the side. It's like a thorn in their side when you do that. It's hysterical to us, but I think it just makes the point even greater when you expose their stupidity. Just keep up the good work. I love it.
Agreed.
Well, they do it first just by speaking.
Oh, and shout out to Fight the Tight Shirt, Craig.
Shout out Retracted.
Shout out Retracted.
Oh, why? For what? For going on flat soys and making himself look like an ass?
For what? Yeah, for what Eli said. That's why I said it. That was a segue. He was one of the people that do exactly what Eli said. The dumb voice. They naturally sound dumb. Shout out to Fight the Tight Shirt,
Right.
Craig. He
Well, they
exemplified
do
that
all have that
just the other day.
distinct, silly little stutter thing that happens eventually. I always look out for it. It's like percentage of stutter. I keep track of that. It's hilarious.
And that's what I'm saying.
They all
Craig
start doing it. All of them.
Yeah, now
and
try
Craig
putting
Fight the Tight Shirt
now
has
try
that
putting that out
English- he has
live
that
while they're
English-
doing it.
See, no, he has that accent just like Nathan. So when Nathan is doing the dumb voice, he sounds like what Fight the Tight Shirt Craig actually sounds like when he's being serious.
It's a bit, yeah.
No, there's no need for that. I mean, I don't know about Craig. I haven't had that many interactions with the guy, but certainly I have with Ruhif. And this is a guy that used to come here and ad homiss all day long, tell us we were dumb. So I feel no remorse when it comes to a point of waited long enough, let's face it, to be able to really rub it in with someone as dumb as Ruhif. You know, it's really taken you this long. I mean, that is quite hilarious. That's fine. It just highlights to him how dumb he is. But that's after he's come and done the same thing to us. Now you can say, oh, that's petty. Yeah, that's right, it is, isn't it? But good
I
fun.
put that quote from him. Sorry, I put it into Master B, or Master D, that quote, what he actually said.
You want to read it? I'll put it up.
A second now. That's the window. Give me a second.
In the meantime, D-Rose, I'm going to need you to figure out the difference between me and Eli.
The chocolate, the quote is even better than I remembered
I
it.
did it.
Hold on, guys. Hello.
I'm sorry.
The quote's even better than I remembered it, Brian. Do you want to read it out? You take it's in your comments. You do the honours.
Yeah. From Ruhif. Are you saying around 15-minute mark that we can't do geometry on a refracted horizon? And my response was, LOL, obviously, Glenn.
How's that geometric horizon working out for you, Rufy? Why can't we do it on a bent line? Is a bent line a tangent? It's only been 3 years.
Classic.
Yeah, you
because
stupid idiot. Glenn, hello? No, you can have a bit of a problem with a bent tangent. Yeah, did it not sink in 3 years of me asking you how that geometric horizon was working out for you? And it got to this point where you're asking if we can't do geometry on a refracted horizon. What, one with a bent line? Dumbo. Yeah, like I say, I really quite enjoy rubbing it in because he came here and told me I was thick. Like cats, assume that we just didn't understand. They tell us all the time, you just don't understand. Oh, really? What about how bent a tangent could be, Dumbo Ruhif? No, it wasn't me that didn't understand, my friend. It was you and cats and Soundly. You're all thick. That's right. And now we need dealing with. We need suppressing. Because we've shown how thick you are. The one shouting the loudest. Yeah? Not anymore. Right? Who's the one saying, Ruhif is dumb? Here's the evidence. He's asking you about bent horizon geometry. Yeah? Does the man not understand what a tangent is, given that his opponent's been telling him explicitly for years on end, by way of a question about how a geometric horizon's going to be achieved with a bent tangent? How's it working out for you, mate? You thicko, you dumbo, you clown, you embarrassment to humanity. This is Ruhif. Yeah? Thick. Demonstrably stupid. Here it is on screen. It's taken him 3 years to realise you can't bend a tangent. That's demonstrable stupidity. Isn't it, Rufy, if you're listening? I'll trim it out and put your name on it. Glenn Williamson. Utterly stupid. That will be the title of the video. Because, like I say, they came here and told us you don't understand what our geometry works, clown shoes. That'll be you, Glenn, the clown. In the clown shoes, not understanding about how you can't bend tangents. Yeah? It's taken him 3 years. And the entire time he was telling me I didn't understand. Yeah, patience. That's what it takes. Bit of patience. And you can show just how stupid they really are. Ruhif, Cat, Soundly, they're all really, really thick.
Well, what I'd say about Ruhif is that he obviously has an intellect because he's able to do maths and stuff, like, pretty good. You know, you'd have to say his maths is pretty good. But the heliocentric belief is so strong in him that he's essentially asking there, can I not do geometry on what would be, from what, if you think about refraction, on inferior mirage or something? You know what I mean? Because to him, his refracted horizon is no different than an inferior mirage. It's like, you can't do geometry on light refraction, and what he's claiming, like, their refracted horizon is not refraction, but they think it is. So essentially, what he's saying is, can I not do geometry on an inferior mirage? Like, no, you can't. It's not possible. Geometry requires physicality, you know.
So you may as well get the summary off us. Now, 3 years later, we only have one horizon. And the horizon in your begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator is geometric. You understand now? The moment you clowns refracted it, you destroyed your own geometry.
Yeah,
that was the best part of that.
Sorry.
That was the best part of that rebuttal. To where's your geometric horizon? It's refracted. Oh, it's refracted. That just means it's now optical. So it's not geometric? No. Okay. Thank you.
Do they realize it, though, Chocolate?
No. A lot of them don't.
That's what I think.
I had a fella over the weekend. He's been at it a few days. He was at it last week, and he was at it over the weekend. Kept on asking me about the bendy cranes. It's like, who bendy cranes. Why are the cranes bent? It's like, you're missing the point.
That's still a talking point. that's
No, that's someone who hasn't heard. There's someone who hasn't listened. So that's not just somebody who's thick. That's someone who can't listen. If the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959, listen closely, then every distance to horizon measurement can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. I won't give the conclusion, but does it state, if the Earth was a sphere radius 3959, then every crane won't bend? Huh? Is that the claim? Or was the claim most specifically about what the horizon does? No, I didn't hear anything about cranes in the modus tollens. Did anybody else hear anything about cranes? Oh, it was about the horizon. That's shocking based on the fact that you clowns on the globe side think it's the curve of the Earth for boats to fall over. So shockingly, we wouldn't be making claims about cranes when you've got a fundamental worldview that the horizon's got boats falling over it on a sphere. So yeah, shockingly, the modus tollens is about the premise of your faith in a globe Earth. That's about the horizon, not cranes. These people are thick.
Yeah, but
hold on.
That wasn't that.
Go ahead, Joe.
Sorry, Neil. Go ahead.
No, you go first, and I'll come after you.
Yeah, I think that bendy crane thing, I think that was in the span where they didn't really know how to argue it yet. So it was kind of like a quick say something, because they realized the horizon is not where it should be according to their little globe map. So it was like a quick say something. Oh, look at those cranes. They're really bent.
It's a red herring.
Then why are they still saying it now? That's what I'm saying.
Because as soon as Chocolate said, according to their globe math, that globe math requires a tangent. Right, Chocolate? So, that's a big problem. If you're asserting that boats fall over a tangent point that you can measure, well, then it all falls to pieces. So you need to focus on something. Why the horizon's bent? It's obviously refraction. Oh, so not geometric tangent point Earth curve then?
Yeah. You know what I had him say to me over the weekend, this guy? He said, and I think he said it to me last week as well at some point, or he's not the only one that said it to me recently. What about the undistorted image? What he's talking about, that other image where they have the horizon that appears to be in front of the platforms, the oil platforms? And I said, you don't understand your own. These people don't understand their own model. No horizon in history was geometric, according to their current model's claims. Every horizon is refracted with at least 7/6, or that's their claim. So no horizon has ever, or could ever, or can ever be geometric. No visible horizon that you see could ever and can ever be geometric, according to their own model.
Right.
And Black Swan is devastating.
Exactly. And so, but what is the marked with an X, labelled horizon, with a straight line tangent to it, Earth curve edge in the maths then? Well, that's Earth curve. Well, what is that if it doesn't exist and we cannot see and it doesn't exist because there's always refraction? What's that marked with an X labelled horizon? Well, that's Earth curve. And where does that exist? Oh, well, that, quote, rumpus, only exists in the maths. That's Earth curve.
It's over. Yeah. It's over. It's admittedly over. When they say that, they're admitting that it's over.
But they don't know why it's over. They don't know it's over, most of them. Like, this guy doesn't understand that it's completely over. He doesn't understand, like, this guy and many others, they don't understand why it's over. They don't understand, like, I've had him say it to me only recently, the black swan image, it's only one photograph. It's like, I'm missing the point. It's just an example photograph. Any picture of any sea horizon in history could have been used. Simply because, according to your model, every single horizon is refracted.
We're going about this wrong. I've just had a revelation. We're going about this all wrong. We just assessed a whole series of Wired Witch videos where we're demonstrating to our audience that the person disseminating the nonsense has got a reified imagination land that they're describing in semi-physical terms because they're not physical, they're only reified. So we're breaking down how somebody doesn't understand the non-physical nature of what they're trying to disseminate between the two of them, the astrophysicist or whatever she was, and the guest student. Now, in all instances, the person who sat on the right-hand side of the woman, the wired witch, doesn't actually fully understand various aspects of what they're talking about, and they're leaning on her to give a more broad explanation where they don't fully understand it. So we're trying to appeal to, in this case, the learned, the people who are being educated in this stuff, at whatever stage in their education, about things that they don't fully understand and recognise there's new nonsense to come further down the line. So for that person who's willing to accept something based on their lack of understanding of it, summarised by the bald guy at the end, where he's saying there's stuff that we don't know and it's the questions that are wonderful because of how much we don't know. So if you're trying to appeal to somebody who's convinced something like gravity is real based on how much they don't know, how are you going to appeal to them for how wrong they are by showing them something that's correct? Because for them, it doesn't matter if they understand the thing that's wrong that they're having you fight against, or if they don't understand your rebuttal to it. They're still going to just bias their way towards whatever they've already decided they believe in anyway, no matter how valid what you put to them is. Because they didn't understand the thing you're fighting against, how are they going to understand the rebuttal to it?
Realized the whole time that they were arguing for physicality, the geometric horizon. How would they know if it's not? That's pretty terrible.
But we're appealing to people that are ignorant of why they believe in something. So just coming up with sound reasoning and logic and demonstrable proof is the wrong standard. We need to tap into the methodology that they were brainwashed into this in the first place to brainwash them back out of it. Because just having the truth isn't enough. Being right isn't good enough.
Well, what problem we have is we have a load of people who argue with us. And I thought about the people like you're on that video. They don't come anywhere near us. They're more like normies. But the people who argue with us, we have a load of these people and who join in on this argument who don't understand their own model. You have people like YouTubers who are growing, like McKeegan. He hasn't got a clue about what he's talking about concerning the globe. And I've corrected the guy on it several times in comments, and he won't accept the corrections. Even when you correct them on their own model, and I've done it to loads of people. Sometimes it's a daily occurrence where I'm correcting these people on their own model, and they won't accept the corrections.
Yeah, you know who you're walking in the footsteps of.
No,
you're walking in the footsteps of Morgile. So back in the day, 2015, Morgile had a pretty good understanding of how the heliocentric model works, better than my own. So I used to watch him go around the circuit debating globe believers, and he would point out an inconsistency within a model that, as you are now highlighting, they didn't fundamentally understand. So while he's trying to point out quite a complex orbital motion that doesn't work, they don't even understand orbital motion. So he's banging his head against the wall as it's back to the picture where they show a horizon and then half a boat and go Earth curve. And you go, oh well, what was the time of the day? What was the humidity? What was the aperture of the camera? Earth curve. So it's like that with Morgile. Well, in this particular orbital motion about Venus's moon, and when you juxtapose that with Earth at this particular point in its cycle, then this doesn't line up with the way it's actually observed. Earth curve. That's why you get back.
Are you talking about people not understanding it correctly, or people being heretical? Because heresy, when you're in heresy, you don't want to hear it.
I'm talking about, go and watch a Dave McKeegan video, as it's been exampled, and juxtapose that with an early Morgile video, where you will have learned 10x the amount about heliocentrism. I'm talking about a good, correct understanding disseminated by Morgile about how the model is claimed to work, how the motions are depicted and therefore reified around a sphere Earth surface that we are supposed to be standing on. He will disseminate that in an articulate, with a shit mic, because back in the day, way, enough so that you, if you were a heliocentrist, would better understand how the model actually is claimed to work. Not saying it does do that, but he'd disseminate it because he's got a good understanding of it. Like, I would like to think I've got a pretty good understanding of it, to the point where I could educate somebody about how the heliocentric model explains a certain motion. Now, you compare and contrast that with Keegan. The guy doesn't understand his own model. He hasn't long been in the circuit. He's made a crappy anti-flat Earth video and got shitloads of views. I'm going to make more. Has he gone out and learnt more? No. It's just as dumb as his first video release. He just sees the popularity it's affording him and keeps churning out the content. Now, like I said about us when I was getting 300 views, ignorant, worth promoting. Same goes for the anti-flat earthers. Oh, he's dumb as all shit and doesn't know what he's talking about. All the better to cause confusion with. Put him out to the masses. They don't care. It's like having a truth out there that somebody's figured out, and then, oh, right, well, if the truth's out there and there's only our story versus it, then that's bad. Let's put out a shitload of stories. We'll get the numpties to invent a load of nonsense that isn't really heliocentrism, give it 1 million views, and when someone else comes along and says, well, that's not actually how it works, does it matter? Because they're all talking about how it works, even if they're wrong. As opposed to these flat earthers showing concisely how it should work, but doesn't. Most people wouldn't have understood that anyway, so just shove them to the bottom of the list and there's no danger of anybody ever finding it.
And Nathan, to piggyback what Neil was saying, about understanding versus heretic, is it that you got to differentiate cognitive dissonance with ignorance? Most of them are ignorant to their own argument or whatever they stand for, and just basically regurgitate and spew out the same stuff they've heard other ignorant people say. So it's not cognitive dissonance, because cognitive dissonant person, they'll know their argument down pat, but they just don't want to face the fact that it's false because of the opposition or rebuttal.
Rinse and repeaters, as opposed to someone who's a heretic. When the wired witch tells the children that gravity pulls them down, that's heresy. Because it's factually incorrect. It's not in line with the heliocentric model. It's 108 years out of date. She's wrong. She's a heretic when she says it is correct. Because that's not the case, and she's an educator. That's heresy. Likewise, when someone says that gravity is an emergent force. Heresy. Or they deny that Earth would turn underneath to cause 15 degrees an hour drift. Everything would turn at the same rate with Earth and atmosphere moving as one. Heresy. You claim drift. Anything that's not in line with the heliocentric claim as it stands is heresy. For the religion of heliocentrism, not for me. I couldn't give a toss. But there's a difference between that and total ignorance. Just conclude my point. By comparison, Dave McKeegan's not a heretic. I mean, he might get things wrong. There's a difference. He's just ignorant. He's just in the popularity of views that he gets when he puts videos out on this subject in an anti-flat Earth capacity.
Yeah, sorry, Chocolate, you go.
May I suggest something that Brian brought upon, and I think Neil touched upon? I actually think it's a bit more sinister than just not understanding. I think they do understand for the most part. Yes, there are some that don't understand. Instead, they don't accept it, right? Because of ramifications of accepting the reality of that. They do understand it. They just don't accept it.
Yeah, but that breaks them.
I would have to agree.
I agree, and it breaks them like cats. That was what I was talking about earlier with cats and Soundly and various other examples of people that demand we understand their advanced logic and in terms of perspective. And I'll give you a flat Earth for the angle that I need to be able to make these claims, but you need to understand that I've just debunked everything I've done in terms of my globe faith. I'll give my channels away. I'll be all right. Yeah, that eventually breaks you.
Yeah, so commenting on their videos and saying they're not accepting it, it's precisely what it is. They just don't accept it. Oh, they do understand exactly what you're saying. They just can't accept it. They don't accept it.
They have to accept the contradiction, right? Like the guy that came on and told us all about how he thinks Earth curvature was blocking some part of Canada, I think it was. And then that same guy later on told us how we were smaller than a dust mite and could never actually see the Earth curve. And then when he was pointed out that he made this contradiction, he accepted. He was like, yeah, that sounds like a contradiction. But would he accept that he made the contradiction? Right? So
Well, no,
you
you're
become a
referring to
heretic
something that I.
the moment you start defending this nonsense is the moment you become a heretic, because the way the model is set up, quote unquote, it requires you to argue that way. It requires you to argue in contradiction. You have no choice.
Yeah, it seems like you're pointing to the phenomena of cognitive dissonance, which basically means you're accepting two opposite points at the same time without realizing it.
Yeah.
No, I think it's more sinister than that. What I'm trying to say is people we argue with, well, primarily you guys, I'm just a bystander for the most part lately, they do understand very well what it is you're saying. They can't accept it and they pretend not to understand. They must pretend not to understand or brush past your arguments because they
Yeah,
simply
but you don't
can't
know
accept
that.
it.
I would sum it up as when they get to the point of understanding, they then have a choice. Like the guy at the weekend who says, "What about the undistorted image?" He doesn't understand his own model or the claims of the heliocentric model. But that's not going to be used by someone like Katz or Ruhif and them not understand it, because they do understand it. So I think it gets to the point where when they do actually understand, they make the choice that they either go in the route that John Shelton did and go, this is all rubbish, the flat earthers were right, or they go the sinister route where they decide they're going to pretend they don't understand, like you're stating. Because I think you're right, but I don't think it's all of them, because there's a lot of really just ignorant ones out there who don't understand their own model. And sometimes I find myself, when I correct them on it, and I tell one of these people, no, that's not your model, look at this, go here, I might even link something for them. They go quiet. They don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, but Brian, look at the Black Swan, Brian. How many times did Huey, when it first came out, Huey went over it, and he clearly said, I don't want to hear about it. You know, I'm not saying verbatim, but he said, I don't want to hear about cranes or this or that, just the horizon. And still, but what about the bendy cranes? So what's that?
Yeah, but some of them are just are doing what was just said. They are being purposefully dishonest. But like the guy at the weekend and loads of people I deal with, you just know from what they're wording. You know from the way they're wording what their comments, that they're actually triggered. That means they don't understand. They're trying to use something as some kind of a proof. Whereas when you see a comment and it's worded really calmly, then you know they do understand. They're just being a contrarian. You know they understand, but they're being dishonest about it. You know that they can't defeat what you're saying with their arguments on that issue. So yeah, there is a certain amount of them that will say to you, "What about the cranes?" And they know that has nothing to do with the cranes. But then there's a big amount of them that will say, "What about the bendy cranes?" Because they don't have a clue. They don't understand the difference between what actual refraction is and what they're claiming. They don't know the difference between the two.
Yeah,
the
ones that do count, they do understand. So most prominent anti-flat earthers, I'm of the belief they understand it 100%, but they choose not to accept it.
Well, you'd like to think that they would have the intellect, a lot of them, to actually understand it. But sometimes I've actually thought that I actually thought someone understood some stuff. Or this has happened with me. And then I find out through their communications with me that they actually didn't understand it at all. I was under the impression they understood. So I know what you're saying has validity, but it's hard sometimes to know whether.
Well, hear me
not.
out. Hear me out. So there's a couple levels to that, right? So they will understand certain basic principles, And because they don't accept it, for the fear or not accepting of ramifications of that belief, then next level of understanding is not accessible to them because the basic premise was rejected. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm saying they do understand it. They do understand it, and because they reject it, they fail to further investigate, intricacies of the argument. And so we look at it as ignorance, right? But they choose to be ignorant because they didn't accept the fundamental premise.
But how can
Yeah,
they
you know what I mean?
reject something that's obvious?
If you don't stay ignorant, you end up finding out the facts. And when you get the facts, it doesn't enable you to stay where you are in this ignorance, to keep above. A good example, I've been dipping in and out today, guys. You're talking about roofie, I heard, and horizons, mirages. And you can look at all of that stuff. But I've heard this a million times from these guys. Oh, it's refracted, it's a mirage, it's a Fata Morgana. And if you bother to go to the detail, you'll see that to have a Fata Morgana or a mirage of any point, you have to have a direct line of sight to these things. So with all the optics explanations we've got, it's only when they don't bother looking at the detail that their story can be held together. But in all of what Rufy's been saying, in all of this, if they start out with the statement that you have to actually have a direct line of sight to an object for it to mirage or Morgana, you can't be looking over a hill, can you, anymore? It's these minor facts that enable them to stay on the ball. Full detail, they're screwed. That's why that we know it's a flat, because we've got the full detail.
Exactly, Adam.
I think you're kind of affirming
Keep
what I was
themselves
saying.
in ignorance.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rebel.
Go ahead, guys.
Sorry, Rebel, I stepped on you.
Yeah, I was just saying, it sounds like he just affirmed what I was saying. It's because of the rejection of the fundamental principles, they don't bother looking into details. Right? And to us appears as ignorance, and we say they don't understand or they're dumb or whatever. But fundamentally, they made a choice from get-go not to accept the reality. Right? That's what I'm saying. They do understand it. They choose to reject it, and because of their rejection, then they never go into the details, and that appears to us, rightly so, as ignorance and stupidity. But they fundamentally made a choice because they did
If I can
understand
add
it and
something,
rejected it.
they don't have a model. Kessler said they had a model, so I asked him to send me a link, and he linked me to a Google whole book on classical mechanics, and that's all he had.
My God, I mean, as crime detectives say, the devil is in the details. So what happens is that they get to the details and they realize they've been duped for themselves often the time.
So they'll fight for the system, just like in the Matrix. Unreal.
Well, what Paul just said is a great example. The detail is that if you get to the detail, the actual nitty-gritty of it, there's no such thing as the globe model. It doesn't exist. No one can present it to you. You get presented that by one person. Someone else will present you Stellarium. Someone else will present you with a Metabunk. And technically, Metabunk is the closest. The Metabunk curve calculator is the model. That is it. Whatever you see on screen there, that's it. That is the basics of the model. If you want, if I had to present it to someone, that's all I could present. Go on, Neil.
Yeah, but Brian, then that means it depends on who wants truth and who doesn't. Because I fought against it, but when I was brought to certain realities, I was like, holy shit, Earth is flat. And that's it. It's a done deal. And then as you go on and on, it's more and more. Like Nathan says, it seems like everything is flat Earth. You can't get around it. So it's all upon the individual. Who wants truth, who doesn't.
Well, the problem is that we have flat earthers out there who are reasonably popular in comparison to us, let's say with the sub count and all that. And they're in documentaries and whatever else, but they're not putting out correct arguments and correct stuff. And so consequently, the documentaries don't end up being absolute banging winners, where the whole world goes, wow, that doesn't happen. But this show, someone searched for Nathan, they'll have to be searching in the, what was you saying, Nathan? In the funeral section of YouTube or something?
Yeah, just religious stuff, church stuff, funeral stuff, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So this is the problem. The best arguments are not being heard. And
So,
they make-
Brian,
and-
if we were in a documentary, and we're breaking down celestial navigation and the black swan, that would be something that people, their eyes would be open to it. Correct?
Yeah, exactly,
No.
Neil. I've even heard people who were.
I wouldn't.
Well,
Sorry, guys. No.
We don't know. We don't know what way they would take it because they haven't been allowed to get the information. So we can't say what way the general public would take it. But I reckon the general public are just like say the normie people. The general public, they're not as held as tightly to heliocentrism and the ball as the people we argue with. People we argue with are the extreme types. Like, I mean, the likes of Craig McNeil, Fight the Flat Earth.
Disagree.
He's the rare.
I
He's
so
the rarest.
disagree with
You know what I mean? Sorry, Rebel.
To me,
Average people are very tied to their beliefs in the heliocentric model. I don't know if you try to argue with the average people, not with the famous anti-flat earthers.
Yeah, we do
they
every
are.
day.
No,
I beg to disagree.
Hang on.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree with Brian.
They are.
You have to agree with Brian on the part, like Nathan said. The majority of the public are anti-flat earthers. They don't even know what heliocentrism is. You ask them what heliocentric and geocentric mean, they can't even give you an answer. So I agree with Brian on 100% on that.
Yeah, but that's not what an anti-flat earther is, though. Anti-flat earthers are the ones at the bottom of the hill, so it doesn't work like that. That's a glober.
Okay, but
so Owen, let me ask you a question.
So there's three of them now: glober, anti-flat earther, and a heliocentric proponent. Okay, gotcha.
Let me ask a question to Owen. Owen, say there is no way. Let's take the whole Netflix thing. There is nothing they could do that could turn around and say, "Oh, thanks, Nathan." How would they do that with what we bring forth with celestial navigation and the black swan? That's it. How could they ever turn that around like they did with the laser test? They can't.
Well, Neil,
They just never address it.
Neil,
They can, guys. They can. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, just sorry, just one moment. Just to give another example. I know for certain, and I'll state this as the day is long, that there's no greater example to give someone as a proof that the Earth is not a globe than commercial air travel. Nothing beats it. But I've listened to people who were pilots, who were on our side, plane pilots who were on our side, making an argument concerning airplanes and going about it all the wrong way. So nobody really gets to fully understand why the airplane can't fly around the globe. None of them detailed and described what they should have detailed and described. And they used the terms they used, they were kind of too blasé about it, and the terms they used, it would be convincing if you're willing to be convinced. But it's not, they're not detailing the lift effect, for instance, and why that cannot work on the globe Earth. It just
I get what you're saying.
You can't. And so consequently, even when someone does bring out, I'll be quick, just to finish it. Even when someone does try and detail the greatest proof the Earth is not a globe, they make a mess of it. Go on, Rather. Sorry.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. The point I disagree with, if you take your best top 3 proofs of flat Earth, let's say, or debunking of globe, whichever, and you take it and broadcast it on national TV, right? My belief is only very, very few will actually take that broadcast seriously, or even pay attention to it, or it even registers in the cognitive thinking. The reason is because for pretty much most people here, I don't want to speak for everybody, but we arrived here by searching because we saw, quote unquote, glitch in the matrix. Something is wrong. We start looking, and we arrived here. Right? Most people don't even look. They don't see the glitch. And if you don't see the glitch, even if it's presented to you, you're not going to comprehend it. So
Hold on,
that's the
Rebel.
fundamental,
Hold on.
I guess, disagreement that I have with you is no
There's a
matter
lot
what
more
kind of
information
what
now,
type of
though.
proof you
Rebel.
have.
Leave him finish now.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that no matter what type of proof you have against heliocentrism or full flat Earth, average men and women, he will not, and presented to them, he will not register, right? At best. At worst, they will register and they will violently deny it and whatever, ridicule you. He will only register with those who initially already primed to receive the information contrary to the reality that's presented to them, meaning like they feel there's something wrong with the reality, there's a glitch. And so if they start looking, they'll find it. Where if they start questioning and then you present the information, it might register. For majority of people, it wouldn't. Forget about it. It wouldn't. That's my belief.
Do you want to go, Neil?
No, I was just going to say that there's a lot more information now than when I turned to flat Earth and, realized our reality. So I don't know. And there's no way. What I was trying to say is there's no way if we were on Netflix, they could turn it around and say, thanks, Nathan, with the stuff we bring forth.
Well, the thing about it is this, right? Who you will get to are people. If it was in a documentary and if it was detailed correctly, the lift effect, let's just say, I'm going to use that as my example, as to why you can't work on a globe Earth. If you detail that correctly, somebody out there who is a pilot, who's not part of being like, who hasn't been given it any thought, they've just been flying the planes for years, are going to go, hang on a minute, this fella's correct, or this girl is correct. That can't work that way because blah, blah, blah. And then no other pilot can argue with that. No pilot can argue with that point. For example, the lift effect. What does lift oppose? It opposes the weight of the plane. The thrust opposes the drag, which is the inertia. So what does the lift, and to have positive lift, the wings and the nose of the plane must be above horizontal, and the amount above horizontal depends on the airspeed, and that is to fly horizontally. Because as soon as you bring the wings below horizontal, they start losing positive shift. The balance of pressure shifts from the high pressure underneath going to low pressure at top to high pressure on top going to low pressure at bottom. You change the balance.
Yeah, that's called trimming.
The balance of the you change the balance of the positive to negative, and consequently you lose the lift. If you lose the lift, the airplane falls out of the sky. So besides the fact that officially anything below horizontal is a descent, the lift effect can't work if you need to fly with an accumulation of below horizontal pitch, which you have to have on the globe Earth. It can't work because you can't oppose the weight. The lift effect can't oppose the weight because you can't invoke it because you have to fly with a below horizontal pitch. So it can't work. Just that alone cannot. It's impossible. So even though the average rebel, you're right, the average person would go, I don't know what that's about, right? And they'd probably laugh it off. But there's people out there who do understand flight, and they would go, even if they didn't want to accept it, they couldn't deny it. Nobody could deny that.
You're saying this, but I would propose that most pilots will disagree with that. And the reason I'm saying they will have counter arguments to it that would seem logical, perfectly logical to them. Case in point, last night there was a live show with what's that panel name? The guy who wrote 16 Emergency Landings, Banjo something, I forgot his name.
Yeah.
It was a debate with a pilot last night. I don't know if you guys seen it, but that exact argument came up, right? And the counter argument, he said, well, the plane flies according to altitude. The only way to measure altitude is by pressure. So he just a plane remains in the pressure zone, and that's nothing to do with the horizon, nothing to do with anything else, just the pressure zone, and therefore it follows the curve of the Earth, right?
No,
Regardless how valid or invalid the
my
argument
argument didn't come up on that.
is, but regardless, most pilots will take it as a very logical explanation. So you're saying it's impossible, however true it is. I'm saying I will check it. I'm saying like most pilots will agree. No, will not. And that goes to
they can't.
That goes to my initial point in saying because they fundamentally rejected that aspect of reality, anything that contradicts it is therefore null and void.
No, I have dealt with 5 commercial pilots, and every one of them, none of them could deal with it. Not one of them could deal with it. That was personal 1-to-1. Not one of them, including Wolke 6020. Not one of them could debunk it or revoke it. None of them could, because it's a fact of the lift effect. Like this nonsense about altitude.
Yeah, okay. So you're talking about pilots, which is very.
I mean, let's just say this pilot said to me, "Oh, we just hold pressure with the altitude." Hang on 1 second. That's nothing to do with the lift effect. Because that's altitude. How high you are above sea level or whatever. Like that has nothing to do with anything, because altitude. My response to that guy would be, altitude means nothing. Altitude is altitude whether it's over a horizontal plane or over a spherical surface. So that's not an argument. So that would take away the argument immediately. But no matter what pilot it is, any pilot who claims that the lift effect can work on a globe Earth, then they have to claim that they're flying with a below horizontal pitch. Then I can instantly say, great, well, you'll be able to produce the data that proves this. And they won't be able to produce it, because they don't fly with a below horizontal pitch. They fly, but they have to, with an above horizontal pitch. Horizontal being the operative.
You know that they fly with a 6-degree trim, right?
Well, commercial airplanes fly with a between 3 and 5, I think, degree incline.
Yeah.
So maybe a bit more.
Yeah. So they will argue that they mitigate the drop by speed, right? They would mitigate the drop by speed because it would fly at the trim, and if you reduce the speed, it will gradually, essentially, fall around the curve. I mean, there's a lot of counter arguments.
Even if they can't.
Not necessarily valid.
Reducing speed doesn't change their orientation of flight. The orientation of flight is horizontally. So no matter what way they work it, they are still gaining altitude. And they can't give you any. They can't come up with, like, they don't reduce speed all the time. That doesn't happen. So saying that is nonsense, because it doesn't happen, number one. And number two, it doesn't take away the problem. You're still gaining altitude.
You're just gaining about this, about the point. I was only saying this to point out they will find many counter arguments against this, right?
Yeah, but let's just say
whether they accept, some of them will accept it.
Well, I wouldn't consider them counter arguments if they use those kind of arguments. I wouldn't consider them counter arguments, but they might be good enough to convince someone who doesn't know any better. But someone who does know better, because there's going to be people out there who do know better, will go, no, that's not correct. This other guy is actually correct. Because when a pilot states, oh, we slow down a lot, or some nonsense, and I say that has nothing to do, you're still gaining altitude within the paradigm of what you're claiming. And
yeah, I wouldn't take it as the best argument. Like just 1 second. Just as distances at which.
But a pilot watching that will go, no, that's not correct. We don't do that. We don't slow down a lot. That doesn't happen. That's the point. These things don't happen. They have to claim stuff that doesn't happen. That's the problem
you
with
can't just
them.
throw nonsense out there when it comes to flight.
Exactly.
Because you have professionals.
And I made a comment. I made a comment on, I think, Ben, talking about Ben Banjo. I made a comment on this thing regarding that. And it was about a 30-year plus veteran Delta airline pilot. And by all the comments I made on everything of YouTube, not even talking about flat earth, everything like that, it was the most likes on a flat earth commentary thread of a YouTube video that I ever got. I don't know whether 17 is significant, but it's more than I've ever gotten from others. Because usually what I do is I get rebuttal, stupid, asinine replies by Globers, anti-flat earthers, and heliocentric proponents. It was 0, but 17 likes. Basically what I said was, there you have it. 30-year plus veteran, not being asked, does he think, but him claiming and assertive that he knows from his own observation of 30 years plus as a Delta pilot, first seat pilot, that there is no curve. It is totally flat. And if you notice in the video, which I said, he asked, are we being recorded? And we know why. Because pilots have a livelihood to protect, and they know their jobs are at risk by divulging that information on a public published domain. And it got 17 likes going on more in that little time of not even a month or so. So not only what Brian is saying, there's no such thing as dissent just because you slow down. All of that stuff is just counter gibberish, the same counter gibberish they do to try to keep on deflecting the truth. At the end of the day, they know what time it is. What Brian is saying, it makes sense. It even makes sense to the most simple-minded person. You got to keep that, if it's a horizontal level going across, you got to keep that nose up just a little bit to maintain that on a straight course. So you can have that air resistance, and otherwise the plane will go and it'll just lose control. Just like when you stick your hand out of a window and you're driving 65 miles per hour, we play that thing with our hand in the window. It seems like when we put our hand down, our arm shoots down to the car. When we put our hand up just a little bit, our hand coasts on that gust of wind. That's how planes work.
Yeah, well, I mean, I understand. I want to
you
see
guys
that thing
completely
above
missed
there,
my
P-Roll.
point. You're just
But-
arguing the details.
No, I
That's
didn't
not
make your point,
what I
Rebel.
was
I was
trying to point
just
out.
going to say that that's not Rebel's point. 1 second. I want to say that that's not Rebel's point. What? Correct me if I'm wrong, Rebel, but what you're stating is no matter what you present to these people, they're going to find some kind of confirmation bias to ignore it. Is that your point?
That's right, because fundamentally they will reject the reality of it.
Yeah, but they can't, Brian. How can they do that with something like flight when you have professional pilots?
Well,
You can't
what I would
just
say
throw
to you
anything out
is,
there.
yeah, no.
What
I would
is it
say
to
is
do
that
with professional pilots? Professional pilots, people just look you and I, right? If you take an average professional at whatever, because they have to be pilot, show them black swan picture, right? That's it, right? For any person who's actually looking for, let's put it this way, truth, or thinks that something's wrong with this reality, seeing this picture for those people will be, oh, hold on a second, right? For people who don't even question the reality of it, they look at this picture, the first thing will come up in their mind, and I'm not a mind reader, I'm just giving you an example. Refraction, right? Whatever. Refraction, weather, mirror effect, whatever, argument, good or bad. That's the argument they'll stick with because it will confirm the bias, right? As Brian said. It doesn't matter if it's a pilot, plumber, I don't know, mechanic. For as long as they don't question the reality, most of these things will just fly right over their heads. And they will grab onto whatever argument, stupid or not, first comes to mind. They'll blurb it out and move on with their lives. That's the reality we're living, guys.
And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams. Hope you're smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!